That was really nice, Dan.
That was good.
Yeah.
Nice.
The beauty of Dan is beautiful.
This is our weekly $800 intro.
I wish it was that cheap, man. All right, so we are here today with Mr. Rob Mifka.
Yes.
Rob and I met. When did you reach out to me?
It was
Like months ago.
Months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, who is this crazy fuck just reaching out to me?
Out of nowhere. Yep.
Yeah.
You didn't know each other at all before that.
No. What made you reach out to me?
Well, I came up with the idea for the Prison Experience podcast, and I started looking. Well, the first thing I was going to do was turn my garage into a podcast studio.
Right.
And then I realized, almost immediately that I can't have these gang members coming to my house, So they're going to know where I live and everything. So
right.
I started looking for a place like an apartment or something to rent out in Scranton. And then I started looking podcast studio, Google and all this. And then 258 Studios came up.
Yeah.
And I think I called you, and maybe you were busy, but I didn't get a call back for maybe a week or two. So I was like, all right, well, I guess it's just not meant to be. So I was like looking up apartments, and then you actually called me back, and I was like, oh my God, So
I was like, hey, what are you wearing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was like, nothing. Yeah.
I'm in the tub.
Yeah.
Thank God you called me right now. Yeah.
So, and then we did the first interview. What was it, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, man.
Ray Black. Yeah.
And what was okay? We'll get to that, right?
Yeah.
So, did you grow up here? Are you from here?
Yeah, from Scranton, South Side.
West side.
Gotta. Just like Chicago, the South Side of Scranton.
Is it though? Is it?
I mean, it's hardcore. Yeah.
It's the baddest part of town.
Yeah. So,
is it really hard? So, what was for people who don't know? I mean, people just kind of dismiss South Side. So, what was it? You grew up there?
Well, no, I mean, it's you know what it is? It's a lot of kids without a lot of opportunities, and they're
without
it. Yeah, and it's like you have a mix of a city / you have the country, and you just have a bunch of kids partying, and that's pretty much and there's a lot of fights. You have the South Side guys would fight the West Side guys. We'd go to the football games, and you would have 5-on-5 fights, and just crazy stuff like that.
I mean, you grew up fighting people?
Yeah, I got into a lot of fights growing up. Yeah. Not usually, to be honest, I wasn't the type of person to start a fight. It was usually my dumb friends would get into a fight, and then
we all know those people.
Yeah.
You would just end it.
So I'd get in the middle.
He's the closer.
Yeah. So that was kind of I was in a lot of fights actually growing up, but and then that's when I joined the Army when I was 18. So I got out of the area, so kind of turned my life around at that point.
That's a big decision to make, to join, to say to the federal government, you own me.
Huge decision. I mean, it wasn't.
Was that hard to make?
Really hard. It wasn't something I had planned on doing. I was, let's see, how do I put this? When I was 18,
the honest way, Rob.
Yeah. So I moved out.
What crime were you running away from?
Well, I moved.
Do you know Edward Snowden?
Yeah, well, I might. I was living with a bunch of my dumb friends that were always getting into trouble.
Right.
When I was 18, and that was going nowhere real fast. And there was a lot of trouble. There was, I was told that there was police watching the house because there was people there that were doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing.
Apartment?
Yeah, I was in a duplex apartment.
Right.
And we lived on both sides, so we owned the whole thing. And there was 10 of us living there, and half of us were all of us were not doing the right thing. So there was drugs being sold out of it. I wasn't doing that, but there were other people. So
statute of limitations over, man.
Yeah. I actually at that point,
I was responsible for all the meth in NDPA.
Yeah. Oh, it was
all right, Walter White.
I remember waking up and coming downstairs to grab a bowl of cereal, and there'd be some guy, I don't even know who he is, and he's doing drugs, and I'm just
all you want is your Lucky Charms.
Yeah, and I'm just tiptoeing past him to try to get upstairs to eat my Lucky Charms, but so it was a wild experience. So I went into a recruiter's office and was like, this is the last thing I want to do, to be honest.
Yeah, but was there usually there's this moment of I need to change now. I need to do something now. It's imperative. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah. So when I was living in that place, that duplex, the owner lived on the other side, and he hated us on our side. So, and he was crazy.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, well, he was crazy too, though. He was like on drugs and stuff. I think he was on meth.
I would have thought he'd love you.
Well, it was weird. So he hated my one friend more than anything. So we all fell asleep on the couch. We were drinking.
Yeah.
And we all passed out on the couch. And all of a sudden, I hear a big bang in the basement. And it was the owner. He broke a hole in the basement wall, and he was breaking into our place, all messed up on Cinco de Mayo.
I feel like
what drug is Cinco de Mayo?
I feel like I've heard this story before.
Really? Yeah.
What block of what road did you live on?
This was in
what year?
This was 2008.
Yep.
And it was right by the Taylor Walmart.
Okay.
Why? Have you heard something about this?
I lived in Southside my whole life, living in Scranton.
Yeah.
So I know, most of the people that live in Southside, and yeah.
Well, there was a bunch of Southsiders living there too.
All right, well, give me to this guy tunneling a hole.
Yeah. So on Cinco de Mayo,
like the underminer.
On Cinco de Mayo, all my friends, we're all sleeping on the couch. There's multiple couches in this living room. I'm on one. They're all. So I'm the only one that wakes up though. I hear him, and he's stomping up the steps with his boots. Right.
He couldn't just come through the front door. He owns the place.
Yeah,
he has a key.
He
decided to tunnel through the basement.
Right. Yeah. But he broke.
Fucking drugs, man. It's great.
So, and he was mad. He really wanted to get my one friend.
You think he was mad? He tunneled through the basement.
Yeah. He wanted to get my one friend.
Kool-Aid man his own house.
He was committed.
Yeah, totally committed.
Yeah.
And my one friend Leo is who he was after. He was sleeping on the couch, and I see him, but he doesn't see me that I'm awake. So he goes, "You motherfucker!" So he goes over and he puts Leo in a headlock, and Leo wakes up to him
in a headlock,
getting choked. Right. So I end up again, same thing. It's always somebody. 90% of the times I got into a fight was because of somebody else. So. He's choking my friend, and I grab him, and I'm like, get off of him. And he looks at me. His name was Gary, and he looks at me, and he's like squaring up with me, and I'm like, dude, you don't want to do this. Like, stop. And he's all drunk and stuff.
Yeah.
And he like swung at me, and he missed, and I just I beat the fucking piss out of him. I hit him so many times that he fell in between the couch. Like I said, there's multiple couches. He fell in between them, and I just kept hitting him. And then
fell in between the couches.
Yeah, like squished.
Ah, Rob.
And I just kept hitting him in the forehead, and he just wasn't moving. He was like unconscious. So my friends pulled me, and they were like, "I think you killed him." And
Jesus.
And there was blood all over my wrist. And
dude, when the guy goes out, you stop. Like
I know, but I there's been a lot of these.
Was
moments.
this a young thing? Was this like because of your age?
18 years old, full of piss and vinegar.
Yeah.
You see red.
And you're hanging out, and I'm sure they're good people, but what's that old saying? You hang around with dogs, you get fleas.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say they're good. They're good people. I actually the next time I saw all these people, the ones I was living with, were when I was working.
Was that your arraignment?
Well, no, I never got it. Because I realized my hand was broken when I was punching him in the head. After,
Rob,
my whole hand was like a balloon, and
Did you break anything?
Yeah, my middle knuckle was like dislocated.
Yeah.
So we're all looking at each other, and he's laying there unconscious for like it was a long 30 seconds. And then, and we're all like, holy crap. And then
what goes through your head in that 30 seconds? Like, are you like,
I think
this was not worth it. Like, do you think it was defensive, or do you think it was partly 18 years of rage?
Probably a mix of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had some, a little bit of rage back then as well. I have a lot of these crazy stories like this, but this was kind of the moment where it was like
time to change.
Yeah, because then he ended up jumping up like a crackhead and was like, "Hit me again!"
Wait, he was out for 30 seconds and then
jumped. Yeah, so we're all in awe, like in shock, like what do we do?
Oh my God, he's alive!
Yeah, exactly. He not only was he alive, he wanted to keep going. He's like, "Hit me again!" And I'm looking at my hand. It was a balloon, and we were like, "Let's just get out of here." So
let's leave our own house from this guy who tunneled in here.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we probably could have called the cops, but we just went to the hospital. They fixed my hand up, and that's when I was like, all right, I got to do something. So I went, ended up going to a recruiter. Again, last thing I wanted to do, but it wasn't. Well, there was no options.
Army? You went to Army?
The Army, yeah.
Why was it? Why would it be the Army?
The Army. It was the quickest to get in. The Navy, Air Force, Marines.
So you thought this was like one of those moments where it's like, this needs to happen now.
No, I don't have anywhere else to go. Right.
Okay.
Because I was living, the guy that I protected, Leo, I lived on his couch for like a month after that.
Right.
And bouncing around from between houses. So he and and that wasn't working out, obviously.
Sure.
So it came down to a point where it was like, yeah, we need to I need to do something. So and I didn't want to live like that either. It was just circumstances led me there. I mean, I was only 18 and I didn't have family.
Right.
So it was like, all right, I got to do something. I got to go join the Army. It's my only choice. So I went to the recruiter, went through the whole process, and I chose a job that gave me a $20,000 sign-on bonus. So when I heard that, I didn't even know what the job was. They just said that, and I was like, done, sign me up. And it ended up being like a computer radio job. So I would work on that. And I knew nothing about that stuff. You know what I mean? But I ended up learning and did the 4 years in the military. And it was a great experience, turned my life around. Gave me discipline, gave me a purpose, gave me direction in life. Without any direction, you don't know where you're going, you know?
Can I ask you about your family?
Yeah.
Like, were mom and dad together at the time?
No. So they divorced when I was 15.
Right.
And then they were remarried to other people by the time I was 16. So like,
okay.
Yeah, it happened real fast.
Yeah.
And then they were kind of like, we have new families now because they're new spouses.
No, man.
Yeah, kind of.
I was gonna say, is that why at 18 years old? I mean, I assume you just graduated high school.
Right. Just graduated.
So you were living with either mom or dad,
bouncing back and forth, but it was.
And then you turned 18,
then my mom and her new spouse moved to Virginia, and I tried following them, then to Maryland, but
I heard it's a land of virgins.
Yeah, well,
okay,
wasn't bad. Yeah, so that part wasn't bad, but yeah, I bounced around my senior year, and because this is when this was all happening, and long story short, they kind of
were. You were like a dude without a country, man. You were just
Their priorities became their spouse and their spouse's family,
right?
Both of them at the same time. So, my dad's wife has 7 kids. Yeah,
and you were just an afterthought, if that.
Totally, yeah.
So I mean, did you think that, or was that like apparent?
It was completely obvious, you know.
Okay.
So
were they always fighting prior to the divorce?
Always.
I mean, you grew up in like turmoil.
Yeah, real abusive. I grew up pretty messed up. Yeah.
The cliched stuff that you hear about that people go through, the stereotypical stuff.
Yeah, my dad was a cop. He was a Scranton cop. And
really?
Yeah, and he retired. He was a sergeant on the force, and it still is an alcoholic. So, cop, alcoholic. It's the same story.
Recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So he had real bad anger issues and took it out on his family. And
do you have a relationship with your parents now?
No,
not at all.
No, I haven't talked to my dad. 6 or 7 years, and then my mom like 2 years. Yeah.
Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah. So it's tough.
I'm bringing this up because I'm assuming that the people that you were bunking with, strangely enough, might have similar stories.
Pretty much. Yeah. Like the guys that were around, you know, sort of. I mean, usually you have a
variation of.
Usually you have at least one parent, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and you had none.
Yeah, and I just kind of had none. So I so it was just kind of like I have to go and make it for myself, and I really didn't know how, you know. So anyway,
So you had no mentorship, no positive male role model, no positive.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So Army.
So I joined the Army. Yeah, and then I wasn't a bad when I was in high school, I like I was saying, I got into a lot of fights, but I wasn't starting them and stuff. Like I was a
cleaner,
good person, but just in the wrong crowd because I just had no.
Well, you were an 18-year-old guy.
Yeah, without any guidance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So joining the Army was a great thing, but it really, I'll be honest with you. At first, it just made me even more wild because now I'm 19. I'm in the Army.
They give you a gun.
Yeah, well, you feel invincible, you know, because
because they're creating an invincible machine.
Mm-hmm. And you're around a bunch of other people that also think that, so it just builds this ego. So and then my first duty station was Korea. So
south.
Yeah, on the border. Like we were right up on, it was called Camp Casey. So about 10 miles of from North Korea. So we were really close, but yeah, South Korea. But yeah, so we would go there and we would just go party every day. You know what I mean? 19 years old, and just until there was some stuff with North Korea during the time I was there. Kim Jong-il died. So that's when the son took over, who was there now.
That must have been a wild time to be there.
Yeah, because we were pretty scared, like
that was right after Team America.
Yeah, right.
Fuck you, Hans Briggs.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And that Sony movie came out where they were going to
the interview.
The interview.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't know what to expect.
Wait, you were over there during all that time?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I was there from 2009 till 2012. So during that whole era,
was the interview that soon? Was that 2012? I thought it was after 2012.
Was it after that?
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe it was. All right.
Team America was definitely before that.
Yeah.
And he definitely died. I think he died in 2010, and that's when we were all like, "Holy crap!"
So what happens in the military when you're stationed there and they're like, "Hey, the supreme leader died"? We don't know what the fuck is going to go on now.
So there's like different types of alerts, kind of, and they were basically saying like, it just becomes more strict, because you can still go out on the weekends and stuff. Right. But when there's things like that happening, it's a lot more limited. You might have to say where you're going, or you may not be able to go that far.
Do they change like an alert readiness or something?
Yeah, that's got to be what it is. Like, we have to be ready to go under normal circumstances within 24 hours. Mm-hmm. Now we need to be ready to go within 24 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much. And
you got to stay relatively sober.
Right.
And
on your toes.
Yeah.
Because like when they did finally, they had sunk a submarine, which had all South Koreans on it. So that wasn't that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And then
the insanity of this world never ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they had attacked this island that wasn't far from where we were at. So what it was I remember I was with my wife, who was pregnant at the time, and we weren't even married yet. We were just about to get married. But I get the call that this is all happening, and I had to come back immediately and get all of our go to war gear. I remember the guys yelling at me. He's like, not yelling at me, but telling me like, all right, he was the adrenaline guy or whatever it was, the chemical munitions guy. So he's telling me how they have
whoa. How does that go from adrenaline guy to chemical munitions guy?
Because
one of them gets your blood pumping. The other one hurts Syrians.
Well, when you get hit with chemical munitions, one of the first things you're going to do is hit yourself with adrenaline. So that's what he was giving me.
Oh, like The Rock.
Mm-hmm. So
Nick Cage has the yes.
Exactly.
Okay, I did not know that.
What?
So you'll have 3 different shots. 2 are adrenaline. The third one, I can't remember what it was. But he's telling me like you're gonna start seeing explosions in the air. It's gonna start raining, and you're gonna start pissing and shitting yourself. And
I mean, wait. This wasn't like battle preparedness. This is like this guy was under the assumption that this might happen.
Like this is gonna happen, right? This is what he had assumed, because they've been briefed on the type of weapons that they have and stuff, and that's what they would use is these chemical munitions from the sky that comes raining down. So he was just explaining to me how it could, because I was gonna get on a helicopter. So all right, so let me go back. They attacked that island. They artillery bombed the hell out of it. We and the South Koreans fired artillery. I was a part of an artillery unit. We fire artillery back, right? Like long range rockets. Sure. When that happens, that's when I get called in. I get put on a helicopter and I'm sent to this island where they had just attacked.
Try not to divulge too many state secrets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and then they say now we're on formation. Some of us aren't. Most of us aren't going, but there's a handful of us that are. And they say, basically, now if they attack and there's American soldiers killed, then we have the right to go to war. And when we were sitting here, me and the handful of other guys that are going on this helicopter, and we're like, what the fuck? Are we being used as bait? You know what I mean? Because their whole thing was, we're going to continue because the South Koreans were doing a artillery training mission. Right. North Koreans got mad. That's why they attacked them. So they said, we're sending you guys up there. We're going to complete that training. They attack again. Now we're going to war.
As quick as that, America will be at war with North Korea.
Without a doubt. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, a lot of people don't know this, but how close we came to war. It was Christmas of 2010. How close we came to war. It was insane. Yeah.
Is that kind of the general rule? Like if you attack an ally, we'll go help. But if you kill an American in the process, it's on.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Wow.
Like we were there to help them, even though they attacked the...
Hold on one second, Dad. Should we really have like fucking the Bikini Atoll as the background for this as we're talking about possibly going to war?
I'm trying to add a little bit of balance to it. We
made
it through. We're all sitting
contrast.
here.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, this is bringing the temperature in the room back down.
So how, for those who don't have no concept of this, how close? Like what would have needed to happen?
If they had shot one more rocket off North Korea, when the training exercise picked back up again, we were going to go to war with them. And that's for sure, 100%. You know, just one more. North Korea did not, because they said when they were doing the training exercise the second time, when the Americans were there, they said that they shot the rockets south, not north, and they didn't have a problem with that. So that was the only reason why they said they didn't attack, was because of that. So they could have
got to be terrifying in that moment.
Yeah, well, and we were all, I mean, we joked.
Southside kid in that moment who's this close to World War III.
Yeah, well, and you have to think too, is most of the guys, the guys from the Bronx, Brooklyn, trailer parks, poor parts of the country, all mixed in with me. And
did you ever have like a senator's kid with you?
Not a senator's
nobody
kid.
Up top?
I mean, you'd get not anybody that I remember. I mean, you'd have guys that came from good backgrounds, but for the most part, you had a lot of poor people, and
so disproportionately so.
Yeah, I would say so. At least more than half were coming from a poor background. And so we were all laughing. We're like, we're going to steal a Humvee and go south, you know, joking around. Like, we're getting the hell out of here. We're going to go get on a boat, go to Japan, you know.
Let me tell you about what I used to do in south side of Scranton.
Yeah. Like, we were all wild.
We could do this.
So I had this landlord once.
Yeah. We're going to get
on. I'm familiar with digging.
Yeah, don't worry, guys.
Yeah, if he gets any of us in a headlock, we need 2 couches.
Yeah.
I'll take care of the rest. You get couches.
Okay, so you avert World War III.
Yeah, so that...
Yeah.
And that's
you almost start World War.
Yeah. It was the beginning of it. And so we were able to get out of that. And we were, you know, it just created this strong, paranoia for a lot of the guys that were there after that,
Post
too.
that.
Yeah, very much so. You know, and we didn't trust the leadership there and things like that. So I end up getting out. I'm 22 years old. And soon after that, I get the job at the prison, you know, and that was like a godsend because...
Now, what prison?
So Lackawanna County Prison.
Okay.
So godsend.
So what year is that?
2013.
2013.
Yeah. Okay. So a year after, I got out 2012, did my 4 years, finished the contract, and then got out. And about a year later, had some odd jobs. And I worked as a counselor, things like that. But the pay was terrible. But it was a good experience. I worked with like schizophrenics and stuff.
Sure,
it was amazing. But the pay wasn't any good. So I get the call that I can work at the prison. And I was thrilled. Like it was like really exciting to know that I'd be walking into a prison and actually working there. You know what I mean? So I was like really excited for that. And the pay was a big jump for me and everything too. So
was that a bizarre move to go from the hard streets of Southside to now being a corrections officer in kind of your, not kind of, but like
in
your hometown?
Yeah, for really weird, especially because there were a lot of guys in there that I knew from school and I was actually friends with. Now,
half of your roommates.
Yeah, and exactly.
Hey, remember when your old landlord?
Right. Yeah.
Hey, remember when you kicked the shit out of that guy between 2 couches?
Right.
Yo, this guy Rob's crazy.
Wait, so you said a second ago when you were in Korea, you were there with your now wife?
Yeah.
US?
Ask how they met, man.
So she gave birth. No, she's from the Philippines, but she was working in Korea.
We got another one.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah. So, so I had met her actually when I had first got there, and she had just got there too. And she was same young. I think I was 19. She was 20 when we met. So, you know, we eventually got an apartment, and then she got pregnant. So we were like, all right, let's rush this marriage. We were planning on it anyway, but we sped it up. And, so my daughter gave birth, or my daughter gave birth.
Yeah. What's it like being a granddad?
God, that sounds so weird. My wife gave birth.
Soon, Rob.
Yeah, no,
soon.
Not at all.
You better convert to Islam now, buddy.
But it was in Korea she gave birth, you know, and I was 21 years old when I had my first daughter. So
does your daughter have dual citizenship?
She not in Korea because we were married. She was born on an American base. That's considered American soil.
Got it.
So anybody born there is an American citizen automatically. So and not Korean at all. She does have a dual citizenship with the Philippines because we went to the U.S. Embassy and got that all taken care of. But so
now just so people know, the Philippines. Is that Duarte? That's the guy that runs that place.
Yeah,
Eduardo.
Yeah.
Is that his name? Eduardo Duarte?
I think so.
He's nobody you want to mess with. That's for sure.
So what for those who don't know, he takes drug dealers up in helicopters and throws them out of them.
Yeah, he's pretty intense.
Not only drug dealers, he throws politicians.
Really? I didn't hear that one.
Oh man, when he first got into office, he went up in front of the media, and he called out, I think he had a list of like 100 names, and they were all generals, mayors, different politicians, congressmen that were all linked to like Chinese mafias, drugs, and literally just said, you're fighting now. In this country, the president can't just fire people, but over there, he just fired 100 people. They all got under this like special investigation, and I think they ended up all getting arrested. That guy's no joke. You know what I mean?
Is there an argument to be made? I mean, there is no way that I will ever fucking
just say it.
There's no way
to say something crazy.
There's no way I'll ever approve of like a dictator who just indiscriminately fucking kills people.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if they're all corrupt and they're all probably bringing the country down.
Well, here's the problem: is if you
nice scene transition, Dan. Thank you.
New scene.
So we have a constitutional republic, which means we have rules and laws, and that's what we live by.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to take, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, if you want to take the viewpoint that sometimes it's just easier to be like, this person's a pedophile, let's throw him out of a helicopter.
Right.
That would make life easy.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. That's based on your sense of morality. I'm not going to use pedophile because that's a terrible comparison. This person is a drug dealer.
Right.
Okay.
Responsible for trafficking and killing numerous people. Yeah.
Most people, if you got thrown out of a helicopter, a lot of people would be like, yeah, that guy's terrible. But what happens if my sense of morality goes against your sense of morality, and now
I think
I'm
that's
the
the
dictator?
issue. Yeah.
Which is why I think you have to live by a set of laws and rules.
Right.
Because now what's happening, I read this article, I think about 2 months ago. They passed a vaccine mandate for the entire country for the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they have been jailing and killing some people who refuse to get vaccinated.
I was watching them forcibly vaccinate people
It's
over there. It was
crazy.
terrifying.
Well, and that's exactly right. I agree with you 100%. Like, if somebody has good morals and they have that much authority and they use it, justice with good morals, even though they're throwing guys off a helicopter, but it's like they're throwing bad people off a helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's the crazy thing about morality is because person to person,
it's
so different.
The next
you
guy
can't have like a societal morality.
Well, it's so unbelievably nuanced.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Some people in this country think that, and to use the same comparison, think that everybody should get vaccinated. It should be mandated. You shouldn't be allowed to go places if you don't have it. Some people in this country think that abortion should be illegal, period. But the rules, the constitutional American rules are your body, your choice.
Yeah, it's a state. Well,
and
they're trying
half
to do
the country want to throw away that rule and force something on other people. The other half want to throw away that rule and force something on the other half of the population. So
I think
you got to have rules.
There's
freedom in rules.
Exactly. And like I said, it's like, even if one guy did it morally right, which is super rare, but let's just say he did it right. The next guy coming in is not necessarily going to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
He may,
that's the scary thing. Once you set the precedent. Now you can, instead of throwing drug dealers off of helicopters, you're throwing unvaccinated people off helicopters because he has the ability to do so, and he's not using those same morals. So I totally agree. You have to have a set of rules that, and that's the whole, I mean, now this, we might go into a little, but with this whole argument with communism and socialism, a lot of these people that believe in it, they are looking at it from their own set of values, and they have good intentions. They think, well, if the government with good intentions did the right thing and had the power to solve all of these problems,
we'll do it right this time.
We'll do it right. And they're not thinking of the other side of things of what could go wrong. Like, okay, you might be able
the if then of it.
Exactly.
If we do this, then what happens?
Like, the whole abolish the police. It's like, yeah, if you abolish the police, one thing you're going to see is unarmed black people are not going to get killed by police anymore because there is no police. But what's going to be so you will solve that problem if you completely get rid of the police, let's just say, right?
Yeah.
But the problems that are going to come, you know what I mean? They're not considering that. What would happen if there's no police at all? It's going to be complete chaos and anarchy.
Well, the cure sometimes is worse than the disease.
And that's exactly right. And they don't consider that a lot of the times. They're thinking from pure...
Well, the problem with it is, like you said, like socialism, communism. Like, so some of the basic tenets of something like that are We live in community.
Exactly.
We take of our excess to help others that are in need.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all good ideas. Those are good moral ideas.
Right.
So on the surface, these ideas look really good.
Absolutely.
Here's the problem. What happens if you want to share of your excess to somebody in need and I don't?
Right.
Then somebody shows up to my house with a gun and takes it.
Right.
And then the government becomes no different than the mob.
Right.
And that's the dangerous road that you walk down.
And you and I have talked about this. I'm like a lapsed liberal, but I'm more like a man without a country.
Yeah.
I think
you're a libertarian.
I'm probably there.
Mm-hmm.
I can empathize with the ideas of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I can empathize with, like, yes, we have to take care of people. Yes, we need to, and I don't believe in equality of, I don't believe in the equity argument of outcome.
Yeah.
If everyone has the same fucking outcome, it's an assembly line at Ford.
Yep.
Everyone's the new F-150.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in that. I think that you should start with an equal foot. I think the thing that, or as close to possible, I think the thing that most young people don't understand, and it's weird how, like, when you're younger, you have these ideologies, you have these things where it's like, we need to help each other. Most of the time it's coming from a point of view where we're like, well, I didn't have shit, so I want shit,
yep,
but I don't want to work for that shit. And that's where it gets really, really difficult, is because the older people get, they tend to move more conservative.
Yeah.
Well, because the older they get, they've actually worked for a good life. And they don't want somebody to just come and take it to somebody who's not willing to work for a good life.
Yeah, and part of the concern...
Well, it's like 98% of the people who win the lottery end up bankrupt after 5 years.
It's an amazing statistic.
Because if they were good with money, they wouldn't have been wasting on lottery tickets.
Right. And there's an argument for that. You got to look deeper than the parfait.
Mm-hmm.
There's layers.
There's layers. Okay, so you get into the prison, which is almost like a communist country. Just how the rules work there. Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I close?
No, you know what I would say? The military is a perfect example of socialism done right. Not the prison, but the way the military is set up, it's identical to a socialist ideology. You have different rank structures. Everybody,
Right.
Your health insurance is taken care of. Your food, your housing.
They can tell you what to do, including getting on a helicopter and going to a rocket missile landing site.
You don't have any rights. You don't have freedom of speech in the military. All of the 10 amendments, all gone, for the most part. And that's the only way it could work. You can't question somebody that gives you a direct order, no matter what, even if they're wrong. And you can say something afterwards, but you got to follow that direct order.
Right.
So, but that's done right. There's no room for a dictator to take over the military.
Right.
So it's like that can continue.
There's checks and balances.
There's checks and balances. So that's why on paper that you can look at that and say, well, that's like a socialism done right. And I think that that's what they want for the entire country eventually. But anyway, no. So working in a prison is like working.
Wait. You really think that they want that for the whole country?
A socialist government,
like a military kind of like that. I mean, maybe. Well, let's define this.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone seems to think it's like jackboots and all the things that we saw from Mussolini and Hitler and World War II and Stalin and all that stuff. I don't think it's going to come looking like that.
No.
If it does.
No.
It'll be something along the lines of it'll be sold as a good thing, so people would want to be a part of it. And
I mean, you being in the military and the street experience that you had in Southside, and you're not a stupid person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're just looking at this objectively as a critical thinker.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, this isn't just, I just want to make sure that, everyone understands that this is coming from an intelligent, objective viewpoint.
Yeah. Just a total opinion.
Yeah.
And I just can see how, I can see some of the pushes for less private ownership and more public ownership, just as an example, where they're giving a lot of the leeway towards renters, but not the people that own mortgages. You know what I mean? So if you're a renter and you can't pay your rent, you can have X amount of months to pay that, and the landlord's kind of held with the bill. Just little things like that. I also think that they're trying to discredit the local police because they want to inevitably, their plan is to federalize the police. So I think their goal with a lot of these things is to just make it all go to the federal government and get rid of local and state.
Do you think they're demonizing the local police here, or is that just a general thing?
Well, I think it's like the more like the corporate media. Whenever they're discrediting the police, I think the end goal, like to defund the police, and I mean, if you defund the police, they're going to be worse cops out there.
Sure. I'm a firm believer, and they need to actually increase their budgets.
Yeah, well, and you know what a big problem is that police departments, for the most part, are ran by politicians, and a lot of them are corrupt.
Right.
And you get corrupt police officers in there, and there's really nothing you can do about it. They're not held accountable for the most part. They can push the limit.
And this isn't a crazy thought, because there's documentation of this all over the country.
Yeah.
I remember one documentary about, I forget what the precinct was in New York City, but I mean, they basically ran the drug trade.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And these were all New York City cops.
Well, and on top of that, you have the corruption side, but also, I mean, you see it all the time, and I'll just say it, locally and nationally. You see police officers who are not even remotely in the physical shape they need to be to having a physical interaction with somebody. You see people who are woefully undertrained. The lady who was the police officer who accidentally shot the kid with her gun instead of a taser. That's just complete lack of training.
Well, and ironically, she was the one that trained people how to use the taser too. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I don't think that was malicious. I think it was incredibly negligent.
No, totally
incredibly negligent.
100%. Yeah.
On par with Alec Baldwin.
I don't think it's on par with Alec Baldwin.
I think they're the same thing.
I don't think so at all. I think Alec Baldwin. Just to get off on a tangent here.
Let's do it.
I
have
think
all day.
I think Alec Baldwin. I think anyone who knows how to use a firearm.
Yeah.
And first of all, if you're going to be on set with a firearm, you should be fucking trained in safety.
Agreed.
Check the chamber, check this, check that, whatever. He's dealing with like an 1800s fucking revolver. He pulled the hammer back and dropped it. You don't need to pull a trigger for that gun to go off. He pulled the hammer back and dropped it.
No, he didn't drop the gun.
No, he dropped the hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that to me is way more negligent than what that cop did. That cop was in the heat of the moment.
I would put it on par.
This guy's on a set playing pretend. But there was no reason to fucking kill somebody on that set.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm happy we agree.
They're both responsible for the deaths of that human being that was.
I agree with that. Here's where a lot of the problems come: is we have to have degrees of shit. Why do we always have to have fucking degrees of shit?
Like, so it has to be black and white. With the police officer, I think what makes it different is that
I watched that tape. That woman did not plan on doing that.
Well, she's also under a ton of stress. Like,
well, I mean, this is also in the midst. Like, when you were growing up in Southside, right? Did you trust the cops?
No, we didn't like the cops.
Did the cops like you?
No.
All right, so we have two groups of people who hate each other, who don't know each other. That's a big fucking problem. Because you can't do the community policing. You can't. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier for me to not shoot Rob when I know Rob's a good guy. You know,
relationship changes everything.
Or hey, that cop that's going around here, he ain't a bad guy. You know,
with the thing with cops, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, they didn't grow up in that kind of culture.
Like the way you grew up.
Yeah, like they can't seem to understand why somebody would go and commit a crime. Like, they can't wrap their head around it, because a lot of them had been, like a buddy of mine, he lived with his parents until he was 30, and there's nothing wrong with that, but for him, it's like, why would you go commit a crime?
Yeah.
He never had any bills.
Because he's never had to struggle.
Never had any struggles, never had any responsibilities. His parents were good, they had money, and all of his bills were taken care of until he was ready to move out, and he had money saved up, and it was a very easy transition for him, compared to somebody who grew up with nothing, no parents, or their parents or their parents are gang members.
It's a learned behavior.
Totally.
Yeah.
This is how you survive.
How you survive, and it's like,
because ain't nobody here to help you.
And then when they had to deal with the police, it was a negative experience. Maybe they saw their dad get arrested, or police brutality when they were growing up. So whereas my buddy, he looked police as heroes. You know what I mean? So the difference between these cultures, I'll tell you a story real quick. This is when it clicked for me. I was talking to a gang member. He was a Crip. And
are there a lot of gangs in Scranton?
Oh, wait, let him. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Oh,
yeah, there's a lot. Crips and Bloods and stuff like that. Latin Kings. So I'm talking to this guy, and he's a big dummy. Okay, and he's a rat. Okay, and he's telling me.
So he's an overweight snitch.
Overweight snitch. Okay. Yep. And he's big. You know, he went by Big Country, and he was a Crip. And he came out to talk to me, and I
Big Country the Crip.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And you know, I'll even tell you his name.
Don't tell me his name. I don't want this guy.
What's his name?
Don't tell names.
Dude, you can't.
Do not fucking tell names, Rob. I am not kidding.
All right, no names.
This is not TMZ.
All right, but it was the most ridiculous. I'll tell you afterwards. It was the most ridiculous name I ever heard in my life.
The real name.
The real name.
Okay, yeah, we don't want to do real names.
So anyway, yeah, his nickname was Big Country, so I can tell you that. A lot of big countries out there. So he and his nickname was A1. That was another one.
It's my favorite steak sauce. Yeah. Continue.
So he was talking to me about how he is the biggest Crip in the entire building. There's about 1,000 inmates in Lackawanna County Prison at that time, at least, and he's the biggest Crip. There are a lot of Crips in there, and I remember thinking, "You're the biggest one." And he's like, yeah, I have all these people underneath me. They do what I say, blah, 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 blah. And I knew he was a Crip, but I didn't know he had any type of rank. And I'm also thinking he's a jailhouse, not just a snitch on the street, but he'll tell on a guy for a bag of coffee or to get him a job in the kitchen. He'll snitch on his fellow Crips.
Right.
So it's like, I'm looking at him like, my God, like, I would never join the Crips. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes for a second.
Right.
And I was just like, man, I would never do that. I listen to this big idiot. He's a rat, snake, and you know, a cow. You know, as a character, he's a coward. And as I'm thinking this, one of my sergeants is walking in, somebody that I had to answer to, right? And he was a rat, snake.
The sergeant,
yeah. Fat, weak character. Definitely got bullied his whole life.
Yeah.
And I have to listen to that guy. And when he came in, the Crip guy looked at him and just shook his head and went in the block. And it just was like a full circle moment where I'm sitting here judging him like I would never listen to that guy. And at the same moment, he saw my sergeant coming in and said, I would never listen to that guy. Work as a correction officer, like for the man and blah, 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 oppressive. Right. And, and that's when it clicked. It was like, man, I look at the American flag with pride, with honor. And they look at it like it's oppressive, it's evil, it's racist. And when I look at the Crip flag, I see evil, I see crime, I see idiots. And when they look at, the Crip flag, they're proud of it, just like we're proud of the American flag. And it really clicked because it was like, holy shit, like we're just misunderstood. We have a lot of the same values, because when you start looking into why somebody joins a gang in the first place, they're not doing it because most of the time they're not doing it because it's like something cool to do. It's sold to them like you're going to help out your community. The man is keeping us down. I'm not saying it's true, but this is what they're told. These young kids in jail.
The perception is
that, and some of it is partly true. I mean, the reason why that's the ideology behind gangs, like the Bloods and the Crips and the Latin, pretty much all of them, is their history. All gang history is super important to them. So where it all derives from, the Bloods and the Crips and all these different gangs, it all comes from the Black Panther movement. So they were like their uncles back in the 60s, early 60s.
Oh, so you can literally source this back to the Black Panther movement in the 60s.
100%. Yeah.
All these gangs that came after this.
The ones that came from Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the Bloods, the Crips. And I mean, the Latin Kings came from Chicago and stuff, but it was during that same era. And they're and that's a whole different history, but same concept.
Right.
Brotherhood, come together. The Latin Kings were all Puerto Ricans that were getting discriminated against. So same ideology. The Bloods and the Crips started, same thing. It was basically to build a community and follow the ideology of the Black Panthers. So the guy who started the Crips started before the Bloods, and the guy who started, his name was Raymond Washington. a lot of them, they give credit to this guy named Tukey Williams, but he's not the one who started it. It was actually Raymond Washington, and he was very smart. And what he did was, like I said, his uncles and big brothers or whoever that he looked up to were Black Panthers. It ended as he was becoming a teenager because of the movement just kind of ended. So what picked up next were gangs, and so there were all these little local gangs all throughout Los Angeles. Nothing organized. So what he did was Raymond Washington went around to all these local gangs. He was a really tough kid, and he would just say, "Fight me or join me." And if they would fight him, he would beat them up and they would join him, or they would just say, "Okay, we heard about you." So he took over the east side of, I think it was the east side of Los Angeles, right? Could be the west, one of these two.
I think the southwest was Compton.
Okay, so
I think right around there. And what people don't actually realize is that, like, in the 50s, Compton was like affluent, and like all the rich people were living there.
Okay, which one was it?
Compton.
That's the west side?
I believe it's southwest of LA.
All right, he had the west side.
Okay.
Then he linked up with Tukey Williams, who had a big portion of control on the east side, and they partnered up and said, "We're going to start the Cribs," they called it at first. And again, there wasn't about shooting, it wasn't about killing each other, it was about helping the community. Yeah, they were selling drugs, but the money they were getting a lot of the time was being used to help each other out, okay, and help the community. And like that Raymond Washington was always doing things like handing out food and handing out money.
It's like American Gangster.
Gangster.
Like he was helping in the community of Harlem.
Yeah. Because
no one else was fucking helping.
Right. And back then, it's true. There was oppressive back then. So there was a real motivation to do that. So he was trying to do it right. He ends up getting locked up a few years into this, and he's in there for an robbery. He's in there for about 5 years. And while he's in there, the Crips explodes. It gets completely out of control. There's so many different people that have joined now. There's different leaderships. And this is when drive-by shootings start. This is in the 70s. And he didn't want any part of shooting and killing each other. He was all about fist fighting, getting that like, man-to-man type of thing. So when he got out of jail, he was trying to stop all of this. And the crazy thing is he's on the side of the street and they go, "Hey, Raymond." And he walks over, and because it was his own people, the Crips, and they shot him right in the chest with a shotgun, killed him. So the gang that he started ended up turning around and killing him. Yeah.
Jesus.
And then
it's everyone thinks it's crazy, but it's no different than like the mafia. It's no different than.
Oh, it's all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's all the same book. Everybody's just got a different cover.
Well, and again, to go back to it, it's all the same. The difference is, what flag do you have on your arm? That's it.
Right.
And that was the thing that you realized.
That we have a lot more in common.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, exactly. Though that we have a lot more in common with each other, even gang members, than you realize. And like, sure, a lot of that's been twisted, their ideology, and there's guys that you look at them and you're like, I have nothing in common with you, and they're not in it because they want to be helping the community, and you can tell the difference.
Yeah, but you could do the same thing as when you're checking out at Hallmark. You could look at a person and be like, I got nothing in common with you.
Well, you can do the same thing with the people that I worked with that are police officers. I can look at them and say, you're more of a criminal than you are a police officer. I have nothing in common with you either.
But the majority of cops are good dudes, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say the majority of cops are I wouldn't say they go above and beyond, but the majority are kind of more like the bare minimum type people. I mean, it's like going to any job. Most people do the bare minimum.
Yeah, but they're getting shit on all the time. Imagine if you were an electrician and everybody's just shitting on you every day. Like, how good of an electrician are you going to be? Like, how motivated are you going to be to get up to work every day?
Well, and that's what people...
I'm just trying to get by.
Right. Like when I was talking to Ray he was laughing when I said that there's officers that are going through stuff. And he's like, oh, yeah, whatever. And it's like, look, you go to any job, you work in a restaurant, it's stressful.
Yeah.
Imagine having to work in a prison, and it's, oh, well, you chose to do that. Not necessarily. Like some of these guys that are working there that were good guys, like that's the best job they can get in life. Like they tried their best, and they it's a good paying job, and they need to support their family, and that's what they have to do to make a living. So he just doesn't get it that humans have bad days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're and it's like, yeah,
OnlyFans didn't work out, so I'm working at the prison.
Right. Well, because they look at it like, well, I'm in jail, so that's much worse. And it's like, well, okay, but I can say the same thing. You chose to commit a crime, you got caught,
right?
Yeah.
And now you're in jail. I chose to work here. It's like, look, we're all humans. Like
we could sympathize with how you got here Totally. We can empathize with your position,
right.
But you still did a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where it gets lost, where the focus is on the I'm always interested in how did we get here?
Right.
Because if you understand how we got here, it informs the present.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you can understand that, then that'll inform your future about, you know, how to deal with it, how to whatever. You know, there's a lot of big differences. Like, okay, somebody's coming from a military background and has, you know, traumatic, PTSD issues or whatever,
mm-hmm.
right? Or somebody's a cop, or somebody's in the Navy,
mm-hmm.
or somebody's just off the street, man. Somebody living in a bad circumstance where they got in trouble. I think all those people have a lot in common, but
right.
the difference is that you just got to understand where they came from so you can relate to them to be helpful,
right?
You know, and to tell them that the world is it's cruel, it's not nice, and it ain't fucking fair.
Yeah.
But together, maybe we can help each other out to make it a little less shitty.
Yeah, and you know, surprisingly, like when I started working at the prison, most of them were pretty respectful. You know, the inmates,
right?
So you know, to my surprise, like you'd walk in, oh, how you doing, sir, and stuff like that. And I wasn't, you know, there's some big guys in there, or they just wouldn't say anything to you.
Right.
You know, for the most part, they're fighting with each other. You know, fighting with us is counterproductive. I mean, they're not going to really win. They're going to end up in the hole and losing all their privileges. So they try to just avoid it. You know what I mean? And then I would go in there and prove that I'm not looking, because there were guys that would just go in there to try to mess with people for no reason. So
COs.
Yeah. So I went in there. I earned their trust, and I was strict. I wasn't going in there and letting them do whatever they wanted. I enforced the rules. But I was respectful to them, and if they needed something, I would try to, especially if they followed all the rules, I would go above and beyond to try to help them out. And they respected that, because they knew that if I was there, they could count on me to not spin them, or because that's what you have a lot of guys. Oh, I need this, and they genuinely need it. It's something that they're supposed to have, like a uniform, you know. And they'll, oh yeah, I'll get it, and then just never do it, day after day after day. You know what I mean? And they're like, I've been wearing the same uniform for a fucking week. And then finally I get there and it's like, all right, I'll get it for them. It's just shit like that, you know?
At what point, at what year were you there? Were you like, this is not what I thought it was going to be? Or this is...
Day one. Yeah, day one.
Day one in there.
Yep. I thought it was going to be a lot more like police, law enforcement, professional.
Uh-huh.
And it was like walking into a circus. The guards are super unprofessional. The leadership is really bad, and that's what creates these bad guards.
And this is in 2012.
2013 is when I started there.
Okay,
yeah, it was a circus. Some of the stuff I would see would you know, I almost was ready to quit because I couldn't take it, you know. And then I just started to you start to get used to it, actually, some of the crazy stuff you'll see. And I then went on to figure out the way it works, and I said, okay, I'm gonna do what I can to see if I can try to fix this, you know, because I started working when I became a gang intelligence officer. I started working with other agencies, and I started to see what real jails are, you know, how they're really ran without the politics. I mean, they still have their issues, but the politics isn't interfering as much as it does around here. Here, it's completely runs the jail. So,
what do you mean by that? If
anybody
you don't mind talking about it,
anybody that works there, they at least 90% of them had to go through somebody like a politician to get signed off to get a job there. About 90% of them, especially back in the day.
So it wasn't like you're the best guy for the job because of your resume.
Never.
Is there training for this?
Yeah. There's a 4-week training course when you get there.
Okay.
And
after you're hired.
Not
as a prerequisite.
Well, I can tell you, most of the people working there have no experience in law enforcement. They worked maybe at a factory, but they knew somebody. If you know somebody that works in this county that knows the right people.
So most of them aren't former military or former
police or anything like that. You have some part-time cops there. You've got a handful of military. Like if you go to a state prison, 90%, you know, a vast majority of them are former military. Vast majority of them. Same with the feds. At that place, it was like 5 or 6 guys out of 200 guards were
what?
Veterans. Yep.
That just seems incredibly unsafe.
Yeah, well, you know,
again, it was
a recipe for disaster.
Your resume meant nothing. I remember bringing my paperwork to prove I was in the military when I went to my interview, and they were like, "Oh, we don't need to see that." So, yeah, and I'll be even honest right here that because this was when I was still talking to my dad. Remember, I said how he was a police officer and stuff. He was very well connected in the county, and I was struggling making, I don't know, $12 an hour or something.
Right.
Just having a bait, So I asked him, "Is there any, there's this job hiring. Is there anybody you can call?" So he did, and then I was able to get in there. So
and then you're like, "Fuck you! I'm never talking to you again."
Well,
thanks, Dad. Later,
yeah, things did happen that caused that, but yeah, no, he did do that one favor for me, and it definitely was something I needed because it was a struggle. But I heard that same story that I just told you from just about everybody that works there
about how they got the job.
Yeah, they knew they had to call somebody. And then they got the okay, and they got hired there. It had nothing to do with their resume.
What's so crazy is I'm listening to you say all of this stuff and talking about the origin of the Crips and how people are getting hired on at the prison. And like I said, it all depends on what flag you're wearing on your arm. The government is no different.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's join me or fight me.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, join me or fight me.
Yeah, it's the biggest
game.
It
sounds a lot like keep talking about how bad we Democrats are, and we'll stop supporting your businesses.
So Mike is really, really mad at a local now state senator,
Marty Flynn.
I'm not a fan of him either.
Yeah,
I'm trying to keep this like
it's the same thing.
Trust me,
and it depends on what flag you have on your arm. Do you have a D or an R?
But that's terrible.
This is insanity.
The tribalism of that statement is baffling.
Yeah,
that anyone would write that because if you're willing to write that, I gotta believe that that's in your heart somewhere.
I won't say it now, but I have a lot of stories about that individual because he used to work. He was a correction officer at the prison. So,
oh really? Our former state or our former state rep, current state senator, used to work at the prison.
All I say is that when I would see the signs that he was running for state rep, it made me sick. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about that offline.
So offline, we'll talk about that.
So,
I wish I wish we could just say it.
I just look. Here's the thing, man. It's speculation. It's speculation and conjecture when you say it in situations like this. There's no validity to it.
Technically, wouldn't be able to prove any of it. That's why I won't say it.
I've got it. So
I don't want it. No.
We're not playing that game either. Okay.
Yeah. Did you finally chime in over there? fucking Stu.
Yeah.
No, but
that's why.
It is true though. Like
I don't want to besmirch anyone without any.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me, and on both sides of that coin, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's why dictators are bad.
Yeah.
That's why oppressive forms of government are bad. That's why gangs are bad. That's why, threatening people are bad. And that's even down to, for you talking about when you went to go work at the prison. There's people you knew on the other side of the cell wall. We're all human beings.
Yeah.
All human beings have the ability for compassion and to do wrong. And sometimes it's you just make a stupid choice. Sometimes it's your only choice.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if we just started treating other people like human beings, maybe this would go a lot better.
Well, I think
instead of throwing them out of helicopters.
You can't fly. I mean, but running into people that you knew there, I mean, that's got to be a weird.
It's uncomfortable
because you know them.
Yeah,
like you know who they are, what their character is, and it's in a weird fucking way, man. It's two paths that just happen to diverge.
Right.
You know, what's that Robert Frost? Two paths diverge in a wood. I chose the one less traveled. That's made all the difference.
I had this conversation with my son the other day. We've been having some hard conversations lately. He's going to go to college soon, and
that's an erection.
Yeah.
Don't wear it outside. Don't wear it outside.
No, but like the reality of your life today is based on decisions you made 3 to 5 years ago.
Sure. Sure.
You know, the reality of your life when you went to go work at the prison was because of a decision you made 4 years ago when you decided to join the Army rather than keep going down the path you were going down.
Yeah, for sure.
At the end of the day,
keep talking. I'm going to grab you a water.
Yeah. Okay. At the end of the day, one of my favorite phrases is your friends will determine the course and direction of your life.
Right.
And the people you surround yourself with, they will influence your decisions.
Right.
And the difference between you and the guys that you grew up with, went to school with, you made one decision, they made the other.
Right.
It put you in a nice job that was paying you well and giving you the ability to take care of your family.
Right.
It put them behind bars.
Yeah.
Life is really that simple.
Right.
It really is. Like, there's very few people that are just walking down the road and the cops pull up and are like, I don't like the cut of your jib. And, you're in prison or dead.
Right.
A lot of times it is because of decisions you're making. The unfortunate thing is sometimes that's the only option.
Yeah.
And that's the craziness of it all.
Yeah, and that's kind of the idea behind the podcast that I'm doing now is to just humanize it. Whenever you've seen those prison like Locked Up USA or any of those prison documentaries, they totally dehumanize the individuals they're interviewing. It's always like they got the narrator and he was selling drugs and now he's looking at life, and it's like, and the guy's sitting there all looking all tough.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a human being, and you don't know what his backstory is, why he was there.
They don't know. He used to be beat every day by his father.
Yeah, they're also kind of trying to sell the salacious aspect of it, right?
They are.
So that's what's going to draw the people in.
Exactly.
But they kind of overlook the idea that seeing somebody as a human actually can also draw them in.
That's why I think that what I'm trying to do, it's different, but I think it'll draw people in even more than the dehumanizing idea of seeing like, oh my God, that's so scary. That guy, how cool is that? He's got tattoos all over his face. Or we can just sit down and just see who he really is, behind all that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I can say. When I was working there, I felt that I was very good at having guys lower their guard, because they'll come in, they're used to dealing with asshole law enforcement.
Yeah.
And then here I come and I'm trying to prove that I'm not like that. And I'm also trying to figure out who they are at the same time. Are they being an asshole because they're an asshole? Or are they being an asshole because they've dealt with a lot of law enforcement and it was never positive? So I do my best whenever I would meet a guy coming onto my unit. There'd be 120 inmates on my unit, right? And then me. They would come in.
One dude for 120 people.
I'd have a partner, but I would be the one running the unit. So they would.
Can you imagine those fucking odds? That's David and Goliath, man.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I felt always comfortable in there because I knew every single one of them. All 120 of them. I knew their backstory. I knew why they were in jail. I really went above and beyond. Like most of the guards there, they won't take the time.
Did that make your job easier?
Oh God, yeah, 100%. It made it. You had to work more, in a way, but by being proactive, you were actually able to do less. It's like, one of those things,
Work hard now, so it's easier later.
And it's easier later. They earn your respect. Like you said, if they needed something. So if I asked them to do something, anything, they run and do it. No questions asked. You know what I mean? So like if I was having an inspection, I need the unit to be cleaner than it already is. Cause I was really strict on the cleanliness, but if I really needed it scrubbed, hey guys, please. Yeah. Boom, it's done. They're no problem. We got it. We'll take care of it. And they do. Or if some of the inmates, some of the younger guys are acting out, hey, can you guys talk to them before I have to come in? And
do you think a lot of the times that's because somebody in authority has not shown them respect before?
So, here's a funny story. They had pissed me off at once, okay? And I come out of the bathroom. There's a bathroom right on the unit. I come out. And they did a tour without even telling me. They brought a bunch of college girls onto the unit.
Oh, that'll end well.
So all the inmates were, because there's all these big windows, they were on staring at them. So, and I was pissed.
You're fucking fish food at that point.
Yeah,
Jesus
Christ. I'm yelling at them, get off the window, and they wouldn't listen. So I locked down the block, and some of them wouldn't go in their unit.
No one forewarned you that we're bringing in a whole group of women.
Yeah, like 10 of them.
Oh.
19, 20 years old.
Oh.
And from the University of Scranton, they were doing a tour. Never called me to tell me. So, and anyway, so I'm yelling at them. Now,
just took a shit. Now he's shitting his pants.
Yeah, seriously, literally. I just came out and I'm like, whoa. And
good thing I evacuated.
And they were good looking too. And that's when I was like, holy crap. And then all these guys are on the window, and I'm like, get off the window. And they weren't listening. Some of them weren't listening. So then after they left, I go, you know what? That's it. Everybody lock in your cells. And most of them went in. About 15 of them didn't. So I call the backup. They all go in once the backup comes in, and I lock down the block. So anyway, long story, I'm pissed off now. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be by the book from this point forward. They didn't respect. I was too nice to them. Yeah. They took advantage of me. Now, really, they shouldn't have brought college girls in. But at the same time, if I tell you to get off the windows, you get off the windows. Yeah. So I took it that way. So I was like, beds are going to be made, cells cleaned. You're not going to get any privileges until you follow
certain rules, and the block has to be perfectly spotless. And I thought, right, this is where it goes to your question, that they were going to be mad about this. Okay. And like almost like it's a punishment. I'm by the book now. And I'd be going around doing cell inspections before I would give them their privileges. And you would have these gang members, hard tattoos all over their face. Hey, Mifka, did I do a good job? Hey, check this out, man. Oh, I scrubbed underneath there. Do you think I did a good job? Yeah, right. Yeah, you did do a good job, man. Good job. And it was like they never in their life got any type of recognition for anything they had done positively ever.
Oh, what's that Bruce Lee quote? It's like, people are like water. They take the shape of whatever vessel you put them in.
Right.
And it's like,
it's a pretty profound thing.
I'm listening to you. I'm a big soccer guy. I lived over in England. I played soccer.
Oh, nice.
So he's committed crimes.
Yeah, I've committed crimes. But I'm listening to you talk about these gang members with face tattoos. I just literally yesterday read an article to where some of the big soccer people over in England are petitioning for David Beckham to be knighted for his services to the country in regards to sports. Mm-hmm. He has tattoos all over, just like a gang member would. Mm-hmm. And he's about to be knighted by the Queen of England.
That's
and
funny.
It's like, human beings are like water. They take the shape of whatever vessel you put them in. It's crazy.
It's also very disheartening that for most of their lives, no one has ever said good job.
Ever.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge wake-up call for me. I was like, wow. Like,
they just need somebody a guy to tell them they did good.
That they did good.
Okay. So remember how I said before, I always like to know how we got here, right? I mean, does that have anything to do with, all those statistical things where it's like, hey, 80, I don't know what the numbers are right now, but the majority of black families in America don't have fathers.
Right.
And it's somewhere about 80%. And I just read a new statistic.
75 to 80, yeah.
I just read a new statistic that it's like 50 to 60% of the fucking children in the country don't have dual parents.
Mm-hmm. Like both parents in the same home.
Yeah. And the crazy thing to me is that obviously it works to stay together. Obviously it works to have a positive male role model. Same as it is to have a positive female role model in your life, right? The positive female role model will teach you compassion, will teach you empathy, also respect, because most of the time the one that kicks your ass is your mom, right? And and the dad is there to be like, hey, good job. You can do this better. Let's go do a man thing.
Right.
Let's do this.
And also to kick your ass if your mom can't.
Absolutely.
Right.
Or if dad got there first.
Right.
My dad very rarely hit us. Very rarely. He's basically a fucking pacifist. My mother, tell me when. That was my mom. And in the if-then game, if you don't have anybody there as a positive reinforcement in your life, it's not that fucking hard to think about, oh, this isn't going to end well.
No.
Well, the sad part, it's scary because it feels like it's getting worse.
It
would make sense that it's getting worse because if you grow up, and I commend you for this, man. Like, and I don't know a ton about your life now, but I'm assuming you and your wife are still together.
Yeah.
Happy, not perfect, but
happy.
happy.
She's fucking beautiful, man. Rob's got a beautiful wife.
Thank you. Yeah.
Rob and I married beautiful foreigners.
You've seen my wife.
She's not foreign.
Yeah, she's just sort of.
Was she born in Greece?
She was born in Jersey. It might as well be another.
Oh yeah,
country.
might as well. That's basically Latvia.
But like you broke the cycle. I mean, like the home you grew up in, it sounded like it was pretty bad, and then divorce, and the natural consequence of that would be for you to not know how to have a good marriage. You never had that example.
Right.
So, if you look at just naturally, there are going to be relationships that just don't work out.
Yeah.
Naturally, let's say it's 20%. Okay. Well, now of that 80% that could have potentially made it, those kids, half of them grew up without an example of what this looks like.
Right.
So of course they're going to mess it up, and it's going to get exponentially worse. And now we have voices in this country saying that the traditional, if to use that word, nuclear family is bad. It's evil.
I just don't. I used to believe that was true, and I don't believe that anymore. I think it's dangerous.
Like, I don't understand it. It's so painfully obvious. The numbers don't lie. We went from, 30, 40 years ago to 60, 70, 80% of families sticking together. Like, the divorce rate was so low. and it's gotten exponentially worse.
Yeah.
As more rights and freedoms and good things have happened. I don't understand how do we break this cycle?
Well, first of all, it ain't easy. And the great thing is I think Rob's trying.
Well, that's the thing. And that is, I guess that's kind of the question for somebody in your world. You know, I mean, I think it's about the most important job that a person can have is somebody who influences kids and people and helps them navigate rough times. I mean, that's huge, man.
I mean, what is that what the input, like you just started to kind of identify, not identify, but empathize. But here's the thing, man. You know, when you're in a prison situation like you are, like you run the gang task force, I'm sure you did a bunch of like peer mediation stuff between whatever. I mean, for them to figure out their differences, they gotta trust the guy like you who they're talking to.
Yeah, which takes a lot. It takes time, and especially if they're real street people or they've never been around anything positive, it's like you really got to prove that you're not just bullshitting them, because a lot of them, oh yeah, well, I'm good, and then they turn around and stab them in the back.
Right.
So and they've been through that already. So you know, some of them just won't talk to you, no matter what you do, no matter how good you do to the all 120 inmates. Walls up, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, I respect that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because they're not disrespectful to me. They just don't want anything to do with me. Yeah. And I kind of feel the same. If I was them, I probably wouldn't want anything to do with me either, because most of the guards are just, it's so hard to get past that. You know, I think that other people are just more willing to, you know, they see what I'm doing and they're more willing to open up. Whereas other guys, they're just like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Just, I'm not going to disrespect you. I'll follow the rules, but don't bother me. And those guys, they'd come out to get something, and I would do everything to talk to them, and they'd just be laughing. I'm like, oh, where were you going? You know, like, come back, talk to me. You know, and they're like, no, leave me alone, Mifka. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But
like,
you humanize them.
Yeah, exactly. And they're laughing, and I get a little, as long as I get a little smile out of them or something like that. Like,
it's no different than, you know,
you made a connection.
Yeah. Like my son, he wakes up every day and he's sunshine and rainbows. My daughter, it's like, hey, how are you doing? I love you. And she's like, you know,
the whole world has IBS.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's so huge, your podcast that you're doing, man. I mean, it's
so I want to talk about it. Yeah. But first, what I want to do is I want to talk about, you know, that prison is in our backyard. That prison is in our county. That prison is in our city. What, and it's just your perspective.
Yes.
Based on your perspective and your experiences and maybe things you've learned in and out of there, I mean, what would you grade that prison at?
F.
No bullshit. No bullshit. F.
Yeah. And for anybody listening, I'm not a disgruntled. I actually love that job. I loved the prison. I loved the experience.
Do you want to talk about why you left, or without getting into gory details, or do you?
Sure. I'll tell you the breaking point, because this had happened a lot of times, but this was the last time where.
And this isn't really like telling stories at a school, right?
No, this is a real thing. So.
And just how long were you working at the prison for?
Total 7 years. Yeah. So.
Yeah, please speak up, Dan, and not. Okay, you're sitting back there like you're doing the fucking
Joe Cool with his sunglasses on the side.
The fucking romance music at midnight in Chicago. Oh, you're a clown. Yeah, you're definitely something.
So yeah, my breaking point was, and there was a lot of time, like this doesn't just happen like this. It was a lot of things.
It was the final straw that broke the camel's back.
The final straw.
Yeah.
So I remember coming in. It was a Saturday. I was off Thursday, Friday. I come in Saturday morning, and the unit that I had always worked, and I see that there was a name on there that was a Korean name, and I was like, oh crap, there's never a Korean person in jail. And the reason why I was excited, I lived over there for 3 years. So I was going to just say, like, talk to him in Korean. Like, I just wanted to, because I wanted to know why he was in there. Because it's like Koreans Asians in general around here, you don't see them come into jail. So it was like, oh, I have to see what's going on with this guy. So all the inmates, as they started to wake up, started coming out and telling me that he's in the hole, the Korean guy. And I'm like, he's in the hole for what? And they're like, they found a shank in his cell when you were off, but it's not his shank. Okay. And I'm hearing this from gang members, white, black, Spanish, everybody. You know, it's not just one group looking out for him. It's
a consistent story.
All 120.
Well, he probably didn't have a group.
Exactly. So they all came out, and it was wrong. They knew it wasn't his shank. So I start to ask.
So strangely enough, there is a code of ethics in prison.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to stuff like this. What's right is right. So, and that's what I kept saying. So, and this is a pretty crazy story, but I'm asking like, well, what happened? So what it was there was this guy who was a blood who lived in that cell for 2 years. His nickname was Wild Child. And he got moved to Luzerne County. And then the next day they put the Korean guy in there. So when they searched the cell, the guy that went to Luzerne County left a shank underneath the bunk. Not in the guy's, it wasn't in the Korean guy's property. It was like stuffed underneath this metal thing. And they happened to find it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll get him out because that's ridiculous. He shouldn't be down in the hole. So it happened on the 3 to 11 shift. So I stay late that day. I go and talk to the sergeant that put him in the hole. And I go, hey, that Korean guy that you put in the hole. He goes, haha, yeah, I know it wasn't his. It was Wild Child's. And I'm like, so then why did you put him in the hole if you know that already? And he's like, well, he's got to go through the process and he'll have his hearing on Monday or something like that. It's Saturday. And I'm like, well, why just go let him out? It's not his. I said, I talked to all 120 inmates and I'll put my name on it. I'm a gang intelligence officer. Like I investigated the whole thing. It's not his shank.
Yeah.
Plus it would, not only that, I forgot this part. The shank would have taken like 2 weeks to make because it came from, and he just moved in there. You know what I mean?
Within a day or so.
Within 1 day. And they just went in there and
that's like going into his cell and being like, man, where'd you find time to make this peach cobbler?
Exactly. Like it came from a big tray that was.
That's how retarded this is. Okay.
And the tray is this big and you have to grind it all the way down to make it into a plastic shank. So anyway, even if you broke it, it would still take a week at least. So anyway, yeah, I know. And he's laughing. And I'm like, well, it's not funny. Like, just go let him out. Well, he has to wait till Monday. So, and then he points at the lieutenant. So I go to the lieutenant. Oh yeah, we'll see. Blah, 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 just spinning me, right? So I'm like, whatever. Like
service. This
had happened countless amount of times. Guys going to the hole that didn't belong down there. Okay. Right. So I leave and I'm just aggravated, right? And there ends up being a fight. So I bring the guy to the hole that fought. And I see the Korean guy in the hole in the one cell. So I go over to him and I say hello to him in Korean. And he comes running over to me. He doesn't speak any English. And and guess what he's in jail for, by the way?
What?
He overstayed his visa. Yeah. He was here legally, overstayed his visa, just never updated it. He had the 2-year, immigrant visa.
And now he's in the hole for a shank made in record time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he really didn't commit a crime. Guy doesn't speak any English. Yeah, he overstayed his visa, and I'm not okay with that either. But he's not a criminal, like right. Running drugs or doing stuff like that. He just overstayed his, it's a paperwork thing. They'll get it fixed. He'll be back out. So anyway, he's begging me, can barely speak English, but he's begging me, trying to explain to me that.
What's he say? Can you say in Korean what he was saying to you?
Just like he was saying, like he can speak a little bit of English, and then it was mixed in with Korean.
Yeah.
So he was basically saying like, please, like like, please help me, which is like Juseo something. So I knew he was saying please
was
something.
He crying?
He had it was like in tears, kind of. You know what I mean? And there's people scream. The hole's crazy. You have a lot of crazy people down there, and they're yelling, they're fucking blah, 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 all night. So, but he's like really scared. So I was like, hey, give me a couple of days, and I'll get you out of here. And he was like, couple days, and I'm like, it's the best I got. You know what I mean? So. But now I saw his face. Now I met him, right? So I'm like, fuck this. So I go back. I'm like, just let him out right now. Go to the lieutenant. And he was laughing too, by the way, when I first went in there. I forgot that part. He was laughing.
Lieutenant
Thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So I'm going, just let him out. Just let him out. Like, you're the lieutenant. You can go down there and let him out right now. He goes, all right, you know what? I'll do it tomorrow. I'm not going to do it yet. I'll do it tomorrow.
Right. Which would be Sunday.
Which would have been Sunday.
Yeah.
I go, whatever. I leave. I come in the next day. I stay again for a couple hours onto the next shift for overtime. I go in the office. The lieutenant's not in there, but that sergeant was. And I go, hey, is he, where's the lieutenant? Oh, he's actually in the hole right now. He's letting him out. I go, okay, tell him I said thank you, and I'm out of here. Went home, come in the next morning. It's Monday. I look on the computer to see where he's at, and he's down in the hole still. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Right.
I'm like, motherfucker. So I call the hole, and I'm like, hey, did the lieutenant come down there last night? And they look in the book, and they're like, yeah, it said he came down there to interview some like asshole gang member, right? And I was like, so he went down there, had all the time in the world to do it, and he fucking didn't do it. So now I'm mad. I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm telling, right? Now I don't tell on anybody, by the way, honestly. But this was too much. I can't take it anymore.
But what's right is right.
What's right is right. And that's what I kept saying. And all my coworkers were saying, who gives a fuck? It's an inmate. And I'm like, I give a fuck. It's a human being. What's right is right. And they're like, dude, you're just blah, 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 blah. You're out of your mind. And I'm like, no, like, I can't take this anymore. This happens all the time. So I called the lieutenant.
And it's personal to you because of Korea.
Yeah, in a way it is. Really personal. Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, and I told them I was going to get him out. I can see his face saying thank you and all this stuff. And he didn't get out. So, because after he said, I'll get him out tomorrow, I forgot this part. I went back down to the hole before I left and said, you're getting out tomorrow, not a couple of days. And he goes, thank you, thank you, thank you. And he never got out the next day.
So you've lied to him twice.
Twice.
Yeah.
So Monday, I realized he's still there. I call the lieutenant that does the hearings to decide if they're going to stay down there or not. And I told him the whole story. He was laughing, everything, right? And he's a asshole too, this lieutenant. But he goes, all right, I'll see if I can get him out today. I go, all right, thank you. 2:00 comes around. It's the end of the shift. I see him. He's still down there. I call the lieutenant. And I'm like, hey, how come you didn't get him out? Oh, I never got a chance to do any hearings. So he wasn't going to make a special trip. And all he had to do was call the hole and say, let the Korean out. Okay.
Which is a 15-second phone call.
15 seconds. And I said the same thing. I put my name on it. I interviewed everybody. If I'm wrong, fire me. Okay. So, I slammed the phone. And again, everybody just let it go, let it go, let it go. I'm like, no, I can't.
Your south side came back.
So I'm walking to my car, right? And I walk right up to it. And all I can see is his face in my head, right? All weekend, all I could see at night, I'm trying to sleep. And I'm like,
see this Korean guy's face.
Yeah. While I'm trying to sleep.
When
I
you
can't
close
sleep.
your eyes, you can't. Yeah.
I see him looking at me, and so I got about to get to my car and I go to open it and I was just like, fuck that, So I was like, I start walking back to the warden's office and everybody's like, hey, where are you going? And I was like, I'm telling. And they're like, what? And I'm like, let everybody know, because I'm not a rat. I'm not going to do it behind your back.
Yeah, I'm going to do it out fucking loud.
Out loud. I want everybody to know I'm telling and why I'm telling and everything, because I've never been somebody to do that. You know what I mean? I don't even know how. So I was like, let them know. Let the lieutenants know. I'm telling them everything. So I go to talk to the warden. He goes, tell him I'm on the phone. Never comes out to talk to me. So I end up talking to a deputy warden, and she sends an email to the guy that I was supposed to do the hearing and says, Mifka's here. So, everybody knew I told. And so he ends up getting the guy out of the hole the next day, Tuesday. So he was in there for 5 days for no reason. But what's crazy about this story is...
Oh, it's crazier?
After I get back in the car, I am aggravated because she said I'll email him. So it's not like she's getting him out right now either. It's going to be one more day. So I drive about a block and I'm driving faster than I should. And some fucking lady decides she's going to run a stop sign and I smashed her, totaled my car. It was like 2 days before Thanksgiving of 2019. And totaled my car, totaled her car. Her car flipped. You know what I mean? So that, and
was she okay?
Yeah, she was okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I was out for the next month, couldn't walk. My leg was all fucked up. I hit my head real bad. Blah, 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 blah. I started getting these real bad headaches. So anyway, after that, I was basically at my wit's end with the place and I couldn't take it anymore.
Uh-huh.
And then they moved me out of the unit I was in every day. I was coming in and being a different place every day. So I didn't have that same consistency.
Yeah.
So eventually I just said, I can't take this anymore. I quit.
And you didn't have the ability to connect with the block that I
normally worked on.
With, and you probably
and that was your strength.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and to get it to that way. Actually, I'm going to use the bathroom real quick. Is that okay?
Yeah, we can pause.
We pause this?
Yeah, my pause.
And now, car accident.
Yeah, is that where we're at? We were at the car accident?
Yeah, and then you resigned.
Yeah, so prior to that, even, like, whatever I was going into was, like, how to get a unit, how I was able to get a unit under control. And I think,
that's hard to do.
It was real hard because
that's hard to do for any unit.
Yeah. So especially because what would happen is I would come into a unit. I'll give you an example. This is a true story. I was working a unit. It was the minimums, and I had inmates telling me about
the minimums are not hard crimes or what?
Yeah,
what
they're in there for drug. Like they're local county guys. They're looking at most likely county time, maybe a little bit of state time.
Right.
But yeah, the crimes are their DUIs, selling drugs, but low level.
Right.
Got caught with stuff like that, fighting. What's it called though? So their inmates talking about how, because I knew them for the years of working there, they respected me, but they were telling me how one of the guards were dirty.
Yeah.
And the reason why they were telling me that, for pretty much, it took a little bit, but what they were trying to do was, because they didn't like the way he was doing it, and they were going to try to get me to bring in drugs. So I just kind of played along and went along with their thing so I can hear more about this. Let
me understand this. The inmates are trying to get you to bring in drugs.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, which is pretty common.
Because another guard was doing it, but they didn't like the way it was happening?
Yeah, he was charging too much. So you'd have guys ask for you to bring in stuff, because you'd be having conversation with the guy.
And this isn't really telling stories out of school. This is like this is known that this happens here.
So like $500 for a pound of tobacco, for example. So you get a pound of tobacco at one of the convenience, and they're
like what, $30?
Like I'm not sure, but yeah, probably like 20, something like that. And then they would,
so it's paraphernalia in essence.
Yeah, and sell it to the inmates, and then they would meet their family members on the street and get the money.
Yeah, okay.
And there would be more than just tobacco.
Man, that's wild. Okay, keep going.
So big profits though. So guys would fall into that sometimes, right? So there was a guy that was working the midnight shift. I was working the morning shift. So he was bringing in not just tobacco, but all sorts of drugs. He was giving them sneakers, iPad, or headphones, stuff like that. So, and the reason why he was doing that is he thought he was like a gangster because he knew some of them from before he worked there. He was a drug addict.
Yeah.
He would buy a lot of pills and like opiates and stuff like that. So they were giving him that plus money to bring in stuff.
Yeah.
And, and I thought something was odd with him initially, just by the, he was wearing Jordans to work. It's just not a law enforcement type of shoe to wear, a pair of Jordans. Usually you wear like boots or something like that.
Sure.
So you can tell a lot about a guy by the type of shoes he wears, So just after, just that. And then they were saying how he was bringing it in, but he was asking for too much money and blah, 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 blah. So I went and I because I was a part of the gang intelligence team. So I let the supervisor know what's happening, and they put me in that unit every single day. So I had already cleaned up units before this. So I figured when I was getting the most information is when I was the most strict, because the guys that aren't involved respect that, and they don't want the drugs coming in. A lot of them are recovering drug addicts, and they don't want to be around it. Or they just don't want to be around drugs. They're not drug addicts at all.
Yeah.
They're in there for a DUI, and all these kids are bringing drugs in, so they're going to come and tell you. So I became very strict in that unit. I was making them make their beds, clean their cells, and the information just kept pouring in. And I played the one inmate to say, I'm interested in doing this. What's he charging? What does he bring in? How much does he bring in? How often does he bring it in? And it turned out it was every single day and anything they wanted. The problem they were having was he wanted to be paid 3 to 4 weeks in advance, and then he would be on a contract for the next 4 weeks or whatever. And they didn't want to pay him 4 weeks in advance.
Yeah, but none of this is really enforceable contracts through lawyers.
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, you got to show up there, and they're all there, and you know what I mean? And they have your phone number. Here's an example.
They have family on the outside.
Well, not just this. There was a guy working in the kitchen, and he was bringing in stuff. And how he got caught was when he went to go pick up the money, the girl in the passenger seat took out her phone and filmed the whole interaction. And and he wasn't working for gang members at the time. He was working for just local people. And the gang members heard about the video, and they said, "You're going to bring it in for us now, and we're going to give you this money after you bring," because he was getting paid up front.
So there's even blackmail and extortion from the prisoners.
God, yeah. As soon as you make a mistake and they got you, because now you're looking at, you can become one of them. You could lose your job. So the guards will go along with it. Or in this case, this guy wasn't a guard. He was they're called CBM or Airmark.
Yeah.
Those types of companies. They work in the
food service.
The food service. Yeah. And they're always dirty because they make like $11-12 an hour. So what do they got to lose? So that individual got caught on camera, and then he was working for, like I said, some local kid. And then it turned into he's working for these gang members that came from New York. They were working in the kitchen, heard about the video, and said, "We're taking over this operation." And they went to him and said, "We're going to pay you after you bring it in, not before. And we're going to give you this amount of money, not what you were getting before. And if you don't comply, you're done."
We're releasing that video.
Is this still happening? Or would you assume this is still happening? Because
I would assume that it still happens.
Probably to a lesser degree.
Maybe on a lesser degree. Yeah, it depends. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
Sometimes it might be just.
But this isn't. But also, like, I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of this. This is not just a unique thing to this. It's probably all prisons across America.
All prisons across America have this particular issue.
Yeah.
Whether they're corrupt or not, you're gonna have guys that work there. You know, you figure. You look at the employees at Walmart. 5% of them are probably assholes, like no good. 5% of the human population are no good.
Yeah.
So people slip through the cracks, and you know, like at the county, there's probably more of them slipping through the cracks because it's just based on who you know. At least with the feds and the state and a lot of other jails, they have a much stricter, and you have to actually have experience. The feds, they do a credit check to make sure you don't have bad credit, because if you have bad credit,
you can get extorted.
You can be extorted. So there's little things that
they never thought of that, huh?
Yeah. So there's you can't work up at the feds if you have a bad credit, the federal prison. So there's little things like that they'll do to deter it. But even still, they get dirty guys going up there. So for us, it's, you know, and then here's the thing. If they, like this individual, his mother is a probation officer and she's politically connected, and going after him for me was scary. Okay. People told me don't even do it. You know what I mean? So, but I did it anyway. And anyway, after about a week, I was able to figure out that he brings it in every single day, so it was easy. He brings in everything they want, so that was easy. He's on the phone with them. It's all recorded. So I had everything, you know, dead to rights. And they didn't do anything. They went weeks and weeks without ever going, actually probably over a month. And I'm working that unit every day, and they're still asking me to, like, hey, are you still going to, and eventually I say, you know what? I changed my mind. I don't want to, you know, I'm too scared. I don't want to bring anything in. They were like, oh, all right, well, whatever, man. We'll just work with this guy then. But I actually went to a different lieutenant and said, here's everything. You got to do something and get me out of that unit. So then eventually they did, and they caught him, and he got fired. That was it. Any
charges?
When he came in, this is so stupid. How he got caught, again, I had to beg the guy. He came in, he worked the midnight shift, so he'd come in at 11. He had to go through a metal detector. So before he went in, they told him to open his pockets. He would sell them packs of Newports. So he had like packs, because he was going on vacation the next day for a week. So I told him he's bringing in a mother load for the next week. He's going to have his pockets full. This is the time to go after him. So, and he did. So he pulls out the, unopened pack of cigarettes, and they were like, keep going. And he was like, no. And they were like, well, we're going to pat you down. No, you're not touching me. So instead of having law enforcement there, they just said, okay, then go home. And then long story short, they end up having his hearing, and they had the inmates that were involved write statements saying that he was doing it and who was meeting with them and just everything. They all told on him, because they're not, that's the thing. You think they're going to be loyal to the guards? Hell no. So they told on him, 4-page reports. You know what I mean? They brought it to the hearing, and he actually resigned. He didn't get fired, and that was it. Swept under the rug.
That's insane. Did you ever hear of anything like that, Dan? You got talking to the microphone, man.
I'm good.
Yeah. So that was
just everybody. I hope they're happy with the live studio fucking audience.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that, and there's no charges.
Nothing. No. I remember.
Because where's the deterrence? Where's the deterrence for the corrections officers to stop doing that?
Well, then you got to think too that,
because all they're going to do is go find another job.
Exactly. Plus, they're untouchable. A lot of them. Like, he was halfway connected, but not enough. There are guys that are dirty who you can't go after them. I tried, and they wouldn't do anything with it. They just straight up told me, you better stop going after that individual. You know what I mean? Because
was that kind of stuff like that the straw that broke the camel's back for you to get out of there?
Like I said, it was multiple straws that I couldn't take. And then a buddy of mine that actually, you met him, Guzman. I brought him down here that one day. He was my partner with this gang intelligence team. And what ended up happening is it just became, as soon as we created it together. And as soon as we did, it became political, because they put on this female sergeant who was no good, terrible work ethic, and just like wanted everything handed to her.
Yeah.
So and then they put her in charge of it, and then we had to deal with her, and she was always like backstabbing us, and made it way
it's incredibly difficult to be proactive.
Like, we would write a report. We validated 20 gang members this month. We confirmed that this guy's a blood crip, all their sort of pictures. Here's the interview information. We wrote it all down, and they would say, no, you need to send it to me, and then we'll send it out. So it looks like it's coming from them, stuff like that.
They're doing the work.
Yeah. So when you're in law enforcement, especially with this stuff, you've got in certain areas you have things like that happen where your work ethic doesn't mean as much as who you know. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem. That's like one of the biggest problems in law enforcement throughout the country is the mayor, especially for the police, the mayor is in charge of the police force. So if the mayor is no good, you know, he can get in all of his people to be the police officer. And then once they're in, they're a part of a union, you know, they're untouchable, they're incompetent, and it's not like they worked for it. So some of them are just, you know, they didn't earn it. So it's like, they don't give a shit. They treat it like it's a joke. You know what I mean? And then they get promoted. It's like, you know what I mean? So they just have this attitude of entitlement and very judgmental, and they're just not good supervisors.
I mean, so for people who would have a criticism about you right now, where it's like, oh, Rob just has an axe to grind. What do you say to that if anybody would ever say that?
Like that I'm a disgruntled employee kind of thing.
I mean, look, you know, snitches get stitches, all the things that we've said, right? Yeah. You know, and you're trying to be honest righteously. Mm-hmm. You're trying to be honest because what's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. So, I mean, anybody who would have a criticism against you to say, hey, you know, I left that place.
They would say,
what would you say to them if they're like, I don't want anyone to be dismissive of you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, I want people to actually pay attention to what you're saying.
You're right.
And I don't want it to be like this simple headline where it's like, you know, disgruntled employee shits on, gives an upper decker.
Yeah, no, I you know, any type of criticism that I ever had, they would say that I had a temper. And so
if you talk to the guy between the couches, sure.
Well, the thing with that is, like, you're running a unit with 120 inmates. Like we talked about, 5% of inmates of humans about that are just no good people. You know what I mean? And when you're trying to enforce the rules and you have to get respect from all these guys, you know, they can't only respect you, they have to fear the consequences of their actions.
Or they have to at least realize that the consequences are real.
Yeah. They don't fear me at all, but they need to know that they're held accountable for their actions, and they need to respect me too. It's got to be both. So, because if they only respect you and you show weakness, that respect is gone. If you only try to be fearful, there's guys that don't give a fuck about going to the hole.
Right.
So you try to find that middle ground, and
to, in essence, basically treat human beings like human beings.
Yeah, like human beings.
And made a mistake.
So when there would be a guy that would,
but back to the criticism.
Yeah.
Like why would you not be a disgruntled employee?
Well, you know,
I know it's a loaded question, and I know it's probably a difficult thing. I just want to take the fuel away from people who would criticize you.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, the only one that okay, so if it's a specific criticism, I would say that a lot of people had said, like, that were in charge that didn't really know me that well or didn't see my work ethic, would say that I had a bad temper because whenever a guy was going off, I would take the initiative to put him in handcuffs and put him in the hole because I didn't tolerate disrespect or anything like that. They're breaking the rules. I'm not. So some guys, you know, I'd call for
don't pass go, don't collect $200.
Yeah, well, and I did it all by the book, but because I would have to go hands-on sometimes because I was very strict, and some of these guys didn't like that. No matter what, no matter how good I was to them, some guys didn't give a shit. They don't want to follow the rules at all.
Right.
So, or they had a bad day or whatever. I mean, there's things so I get a guy, he pulls away, and I take him down to the ground, and to them that means, oh, he must have a hot temper. And it's like, I never hit the guy. I never struck him. I did it by the book. I've studied the use of force policy. I actually taught it. So I know it very, very well. And I would follow that. But the people that don't know the rules think you can't just put a guy on the ground like that and then put him in handcuffs.
Right.
And it's like, no, you can. Like, you really can. You know what I mean? It's in the policy, that your own policy that you wrote. So, but they never read it. The people in charge never took the time to read these policies. So that would, the only criticism that they would say about me is that I had a hot temper, you know? Now, as far as me coming out and saying all these things, it's like, hey man, you know, it's hard to even respond to that because, I'm just being as honest as I can with this whole situation. I'm not trying to, you know, throw anybody's name through the mud or anything like that. But the idea is just to put a spotlight. You know, there's a lot of spotlight.
You have to admit your faults before you can correct your mistakes.
Well, and I think for that, like admitting your faults, like, oh, you're just a disgruntled ex-employee. Yes, I am.
Well, and that's
no, I'm not saying that.
But like everything you've said today, it's like, oh, you're just a disgruntled corrections officer. Yes, I am. Yeah. Let me tell you why.
And that's it. And that's
okay.
Boom. Yeah. It's not that I'm not a disgruntled employee. That's what it is. I am technically disgruntled
because you see it where it can be better.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And when you see guys.
And you didn't have the ability or the opportunity to change it.
Right. I went to human resources. Right. I went to the warden. I did everything I could to try to fix everything. I can look back and say, I didn't just give up, I couldn't do it because every avenue I went towards, they were all affiliated with each other. When I go to human resources, I come to find out that they were involved with the warden and everybody else that was running the prison. So,
and if not, what is the human resources person going to do? Fire 70% of the staff?
Yeah. Well,
I don't think it's that bad.
It's the leadership. And then what ends up happening is the officers just become, they're all disgruntled employees working there.
Is there any doubt in your mind that most of the employees over there are disgruntled?
No doubt in my mind at all. They get mandated 3 to 4 times a week. They get treated like shit. And if they're not as politically connected as some of the other guys, because some of them are like best friends with some of the politicians in this area or whatever, or they're linked in somehow.
Sure.
And
well, you can't swing a dead cat around here without hitting somebody that you know in power.
So these guys aren't even around the inmates. They're walking around drinking coffee and laughing while you're dealing with 120 inmates. You know what I'm saying? So, there's a lot of that. You know what I mean? And so, most of them are disgruntled. Probably maybe 10% of them are okay with it. But, most of them they don't get treated well. They don't get treated like it's there's no room for, nobody says you did a good job. There's just no incentive to do anything besides go in there, do the bare minimum. Hope you don't have to write a report because they're going to criticize it one way or the other. You have bad leadership and stuff. So,
how important is good leadership?
That's all. That's it right there, man. That's, and that,
without naming names.
Yeah.
Being particular, I think people underestimate the importance of good leadership.
Underestimate it. Yeah. Like totally. When I worked in a unit and I was the leader of that unit, it was the best unit in the entire jail, hands down. Clean, respectful. Nobody gave me an issue. If they did, they were in the hole, so I didn't have to deal with them. And you go to a different unit and it's like a complete mess. They're disrespectful. They're coming out all the time. They're not following the rules. They're not going in their cells when they're supposed to. Loud, obnoxious, disrespectful. And it's the same inmates. There's no difference, really. You know what I'm saying? It's just a matter of who's working that unit. And it's the same thing in the grand scheme of things. The people that are in charge of the jail, if they do a bad job, most of your employees are going to do a bad job. Just like when I was in the military, I had really bad leaders and I had really good leaders. And the difference between the two, the way the platoon would work is it can't even compare it. So leadership is everything. And that's why one of the biggest reasons why law enforcement has the issues that it has is because the leader of most police departments is the mayor. And if that mayor either is incompetent because he doesn't know any better or he's corrupt, then that police force is going to suffer from it. You know what I mean? Because it just starts to trickle down. And once it gets down to as it continues to go through the ranks and it gets down to the patrol officers, if they're being trained incorrectly or treated badly, guess what they're going to do to the citizens? You know what I mean? Most of them, not all of them, but it just rubs off on people, know? And I think people, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of people there's a lot of these positions where you look at it as masculine and you look at it as, do you know what I mean? Where it's like kind of like a gruff job, like police officer, corrections officer, military. But I think a lot of the times we dismiss the idea that like human beings, no matter how tough you think they are, have sensitivities to certain things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where it's like maybe that little thing that happened wouldn't affect Rob, but somebody else, it might terribly affect them.
And if you have a good leader, like you said,
they can recognize
good leader
that.
There, they see that, they recognize it, and they know where your strengths and weaknesses are, and they make sure that you are placed in the right role, given the right training, and
they would know the right training. They would know how to explain it. And I remember my one lieutenant, the one that was laughing, the guy, he came in and he was mad that something didn't get done. And we were going back and forth because we would argue with these guys. No job should be arguing with your boss, but here we are arguing back with them.
But there was a board where you press buttons to open the door. It's like a touch screen. And we said, let me ask you, do you know how to use this board? And he was like, no. He goes, I can probably figure it out in 30 seconds though. And I said,
all right, I'll start the watch.
I said, so we've had this board for 2 years and you didn't take 30 seconds to take. He's like, well, it's not my job. I go, well, what if you walk on the unit and a new guy asks you how to use it? How do we respect you as my leader when you don't even know my job? And he had nothing to say, and it's just like, here we go. Like, again, the normal job, you wouldn't even be able to say that, but you wouldn't have to either a lot of the times, So, because that was all of them were like that, just completely clueless. Didn't even want to, he had to go down to that unit. Any other jail, a lot of the times, the supervisors come down to the unit, talk to the inmates, make sure everything is okay, make sure the officers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. You don't have any of that. So you're just on your own. You walk in there, you got 120 inmates. You won't see a supervisor 9 times out of 10, and it's a free for all, So you get to do it however you want. I chose to do it right, but I had every opportunity to do it wrong, do it any way I wanted to. You know what I mean? If a friend of mine came on the unit, I could take care of him. You know what I mean? If I didn't like the guy, I could. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
The room for whatever the error or whatever
was vast.
God. So, and that's what you'd see. Like any other jail, if you know a guy coming in, they move them out of the jail or they won't let you work that unit at the very least. Our place, somebody, they're getting taken care of. You know what I mean? Like, totally. You're going to get a job. You're going to get food. You're going to get 2 mattresses, extra blankets, extra clothes.
That's fucking insane.
If it's like your dad or something, if your dad works there, you're set. You're good. You may not even have to go to a regular unit. They'll put you in a cell with like your own shower in the medical unit.
Ugh.
So,
I don't know, man. I don't know the answers to this, but all I know is like a lot of the times I can identify with when something is broken. I just don't know the answers on how to fix it.
Well, exposing it, and that's kind of what I'm starting with. So the thing with my podcast is,
that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, expose what's going on because yes, we see a lot what's going on with police because there's people with cameras.
I don't know if expose is the right word. Maybe enlighten.
Yeah.
Educate
because there's things that go on that are good too.
Yeah.
That people don't know. So
what's the impetus for the prison experience?
So it's to like you said, enlighten the experience that happens for people working and also being incarcerated in prison and the reality of it, because there are some crazy stories, how you got there, what it was like while you were there, and how it was like when you got out. And everybody has a unique experience, and there's a lot of stories with just hearing their story. So enlighten that, where it's humanizing why somebody would be in corrections, a police officer, or be on the other side where they're
an inmate
committing a career criminal. But that's what they do. How they make money is they commit crimes.
So the name of your podcast is
The Prison Experience.
Yeah, The Prison Experience.
Okay, so when you do the video, coming from my hands, the words, The Prison Experience.
Oh, right here, right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, one more time. The name of your podcast is
The Prison Experience.
The Prison Experience.
Yeah. Nice.
That's going to be
so
great.
The end goal of that is if this gets the attention that I hope it will, is to then take a proactive stance, because this is what we wanted to do with the gang task force that me and my partner were doing, but it got completely corrupted by the individuals that run the county.
Yeah.
So now what the idea is to enlighten and then use that platform to help kids in struggling communities that are coming from these families and cultures. It's a culture issue more than anything. Coming from these cultures where they're coming from a fatherless home, or there's no opportunities. There's, because in a lot of areas in the country, sure, you hear a lot of this talk about equality of outcome, which is complete nonsense. What we need to, as you know, work on getting everybody as close as we can to the same opportunities, and then let them make their own decisions. And in a lot of places, the opportunities aren't the same for some and others. So I want to be able to put something together where we can fill that gap, I hope. And I think that if you take a proactive stance for kids coming up, they'll be less likely to, if they get the right guidance and the hey, you did a good job, and all those things that I've learned from working in a prison about the psychology behind all of this. If I can implement that on a grand scale, perhaps I can prevent a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people from going that route and having them go the right path. So,
or to know that there's options out there. Like this doesn't have to be this doesn't have to be manifest destiny.
Exactly, and have them understand. Just like me trying to teach my buddy that was a cop that lived with his parents till he was 30, teach him about gangs and why somebody would go into that lifestyle. I want to be able to teach these guys that are in gangs why somebody would go the other way and work for the man and work for and be proud of the American flag, and just to give an understanding. I'm not saying they have to buy into it, but if they can understand why somebody feels that way, you know, like we were saying, it's just a lot of it is a miscommunication. It's like, hey, we have a lot more in common than we realize. We may not agree on everything. We have a lot in common. We're all still human beings, and we are trying to do the right thing. We think we're doing the right thing, you know, and if they can at least understand that and have that kind of that empathy on both sides, police and that's what this whole thing is about, is humanizing it, and hopefully could end up making some solutions in all of this.
What I like about what you're doing. You didn't see an episode yet, did you?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so what I like about what I really like about what you're doing is you're literally it's like I don't. This is probably a terrible example, but
can you put a hyperlink in the video on YouTube?
Yeah,
right here.
Motherfucker! All you're doing is making more work for me. All you're doing is making more work for me. But it's almost like when you hear those stories in history about like a POW and then the guard, that was at that camp, and they have a conversation about what it was like on both sides, and you know, the beautiful thing about what Rob's doing is you know, he's gonna be talking to people who you know, otherwise, you know, society just dismisses them mentally and emotionally. They're just criminal,
right?
That's it. And they're not they're not just criminals, man. Right. A lot of this stuff comes from upbringing, societal, familial.
Yeah.
And to understand how you can't fucking prevent stuff until you understand how you got where you are.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So once you can identify the determining factors of how you got to where you are, you can now look at those as avoidance things. It's like when you date the crazy bitch.
Right.
You're like, there's she's pretty, but I don't need that shit in my life whatsoever.
And even racism is a good example of this. It's like, you know, most people that are racist, they started out by not understanding the other culture, and either they were misled because their parents.
A lot of the times it's ignorance.
Ignorance, right?
Yeah.
Like they either didn't know any better or they were told the wrong thing.
Sure.
And when you don't know something, you know, or you're misled or you're told it's bad, you could be fearful of it, especially if you don't know and stuff. It's like the unknown you're scared of. And then a lot of people hate what they don't know. You know, they'll understand what they're scared of.
Because it's fear.
Yeah, because they hate what they fear.
Yoda was right.
Right. And exactly, fear turns to hate. And I guess the fourth step would be, if you really take it that far, to go join a group of other like-minded, ignorant, scared, hateful people.
Now you're in an intelligence vacuum.
Right. And it's reinforcing what you already think.
All your confirmation biases are being there. So, who was the guy? Joe Rogan had him on. It was the black guy who was converting.
Daryl Davis.
Daryl Davis.
Yeah.
Did you watch
some time
that?
with the Klan?
Yeah.
He spent a lot of time with the Klan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, this guy, when they leave the Klan, they give him their robes. He wants their robes.
He collects them.
He collects them. And I mean, and all that is just misunderstanding.
Totally.
Relationship changes everything.
Yes.
Listening to him, and just from my own experiences in life, and then I came across him before he was even on Joe Rogan's podcast, but I did watch that whole episode as well. And I was like, man, this guy nailed it.
Did you watch the sit down he did
with Joe Rogan, or with the
No. The very first sit down
with the guy.
It's on film.
Yeah,
where he sits down and has a conversation with these people.
With the KKK members.
Yeah, fascinating.
He got rid of like hundreds or maybe even thousands of members. They got rid of.
I think he's a couple hundred.
Got hundreds. Yeah. No, I really like that guy, and you know his experience. Like I said in the Joe Rogan thing, he was growing up in a military or a government family.
Yeah.
So he wasn't in America where there was a lot of racism. And when he came back when he was 10, there were people throwing stuff at him because he was black, and he just couldn't understand. Like, he didn't grow up with it.
Yeah.
He genuinely didn't understand it, and he spent the rest of his life trying to figure it out, and he totally did, because he just came from a non-biased point of view, and he nailed it. It's exactly what it is. It's just people are ignorant and they're fearful, and then they become hateful, and most of them. There are some that are just evil people, but for the most part,
but we can't lump lump those people into the group as being representative of the group.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So when you know, in jail, race is a big thing. You know, everybody's divided by race. So you see stuff like that.
Are they divided by race because of?
That's the only discerning thing you can tell.
No. But I mean, is that like an internal thing, or like they divide them by race in jail on purpose?
No. Like we don't do it on purpose.
Okay, that's what I'm not. That's what I'm just. I just wanted to clarify that they're not being like. Here's the white wing.
No. I've seen it where they would separate certain gangs. Like you go over here, you go over here.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but as far as race, no. But there would be a total division between them. No, I mean they would interact with each other, but you would see certain groups of one, certain groups of the other, all staying together and looking out for each other for the most part too. So yeah, race is a big thing in jail. So it was interesting to see that because I came from the Army where it's like race is not a big deal at all, actually. Race is like the last thing you're thinking about, because everybody's a different race and different culture and they're all from around the world. So it's like nobody gives a crap.
Yeah.
And when you want to hear a crazy story? So I'm working my first.
Hold on, Micah, do you want to hear a crazy story?
Yeah. I'm working my first.
That's what I'm here for.
I'm working my first shift and.
At the prison?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm with this guy.
Ever? Your first shift, what do you mean?
Yeah, like at the prison. And I'm working with this guy that got moved from his original spot to work with me, and he was all pissed off because he had to work with some new guy, right? So he was all disgruntled and just crying about it. So when he was talking, okay, and this is a guy that works at the prison, okay, and this is for my own. This is a true story.
Is this a CO?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
were you guys peers as far as you're in the pecking order of?
Well, we were. I mean, seniority,
peers, but he'd been there longer.
Yeah, seniority is a big deal in prison because that's like all you can have on somebody.
Right, sure,
right? There's like, So anyway, he kept using the N-word, and as he was describing black people, we were having a conversation, and it was
hard R, soft A,
hard R, and I would say the word black people because we were having a conversation, and it just every time he said it, I never actually heard somebody say it like that, or not, you know what I mean? Like not like that, like just totally normal, like just saying it. And it would just make me cringe. But whenever I would say black people instead, as I was having this conversation, I just didn't know what to say at first. I just kind of let it go, and he would cringe when I said black people, just like I would cringe when he said the N-word. So finally he says to me, let me ask you something. He goes, are you racist? And I was like, no, actually I'm not. And he goes, yeah, well, you will be. And he got up and he walked away. And I'll never forget that because I was just like, holy shit. I was like, I'm never going to be racist. I don't know what you're talking. I've been around the world. Like I've been with different cultures. Like I know enough to know that what you're saying is totally ignorant. Now, for his story, he grew up in Scranton. There's a lot of white people in this area. And the only times he was around, actually, he didn't grow up in Scranton. He grew up in like the country around Scranton.
Sure.
So even more white. So his only experience with black people were inmates. And his
relationship changes everything.
Yeah, he formed his view on the world view on black people from the inmates that he had to deal with. And it's like, look, you're dealing with the worst of them, Same with the whites that are in there. They're all pain in the, you know what I'm saying? It's like you're not dealing with, like when I was in the Army.
It should not be the way that you judge. This should not be the example for you should to form an opinion.
And his thing is, it's he just didn't know any better, and it just goes back to the whole thing of him being ignorant.
Yeah, I don't think he's hateful. I just think he's ignorant.
Totally. Yeah. And I get that, and that's the thing. It's like you could fix that actually, and people they dismiss a racist as I'm not trying to stick up for them either, by the way. But they dismiss.
That's the headline.
Yeah.
They do know how to keep moths away.
Yeah. See, like for me, the goal is to get rid of that and enlighten people that shit is fake. There is no racism.
The content of your character.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard a quote yesterday. It was only racists like to talk about race. Let's talk about character.
Right. Yeah. Right. And you see a big movement from the other side now of the far left, where they're pushing for a strong like they're saying they're anti-racist, but it's actually just a different form of racism,
Yeah. So which is strangely disproportionately affecting minorities right now, their behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's another podcast.
Yeah.
So on the prison experience, what are the types of guests that you got coming up? Because I want people to know what to look forward to. So like variety, like what type of people are you going to try to talk to?
So there's going to be some big gang members that we have coming up next. A guy that I had put in the hole and we do not like each other. So we're gonna have a
wait. He's coming on your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. His name is Killer Blood.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a little and me and him we did not get along.
How did you convince him to do this?
So the guy that I first interviewed is friends with them.
Got it.
And
he told him it was good. Like
they talked about it on the podcast,
and we actually brought it up. And he was the one that brought it up first, because he kept trying to tell me even while he was in jail that he's a good guy, and I kept thinking he's a big bully, because he is a bully.
What's his name? Killer Blood.
Yeah, but he's a bully. But
my nickname is the Tennessee Gentleman. Yeah, I feel like there's a disparity.
But with him, he's a little bit of a bully, but he's also the real deal at the same time. Yeah. So usually bullies are, in my experience, bullies are weak.
Yeah.
But 1 out of 10 times they're not. They can actually back it up. But
I don't know if it's so much as bullying as no bullshit. You know, if something's right, he's going to do the thing to make sure that there's some sort, whatever his form of justice is.
No, because he would cheat at the poker table.
That doesn't mean you're a bully.
Yes, it does. To me, it does. I'm not going to tell him that, but
well, it's been nice knowing you.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope it. And again, with him and me, we never had a chance to just have a conversation. Man to man.
And that's the important thing, Rob. No one talks anymore.
Exactly.
We need to sit down and have conversations with people we disagree with.
Right.
We might leave the table disagreeing.
Right.
But at least we're going to understand where each other came from, and you have to keep your temper to a zero.
Yeah. Well, I think that I would assume he has to have a level of respect for me, because he saw that even though me and him didn't get along, I helped out a lot of people.
Yeah.
And just like me, I gained a level of respect for him because he would help a lot of the younger kids and talk them out of joining a gang.
Right. So you're to me, my opinion, and I'm never going to tell you how to do your fucking podcast unless it gets terrible. Is you have a common ground now.
Right.
Because the goal is the same.
Exactly.
Right? So two people who are ideologically might be different, having the common goal, that's all that matters.
Right. I'm assuming that's a big part of why when he heard my name, instead of saying F that, he said okay. So
I think this is going to be fascinating.
I'm telling you, like, just kind of listening to this and having literally just met you 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to watch this.
Yeah,
but your other guests will be what?
It's going to be so fascinating.
Wait till I show you a picture of him. He's like 6'6". He's massive too.
Really?
I'd be in his face like I'm barking at him. I was young back then when I was 23, 24 years old, and
you think you're impervious.
Just got out of the army. I thought I was tough, and I thought he was a big bully. Come to find out, he could really fight.
And you were probably wrong on your initial thought.
Well, that he was a big bully?
Yeah. Sometimes it's about admitting that your first instinct is incorrect.
Well, that's what I want to talk to him about. I want to get to know him more, because I'm not sure if I was wrong about that yet.
You're still not willing to admit you might be wrong.
He's a local guy?
Yeah. Where I feel that I may have been wrong is we brought up temper before. In that era, I may have, because he would fire off cursing at me and stuff.
Yeah.
And my response may not have been so professional.
Yeah.
So that's one thing.
It's more reactionary.
Yeah, I'll admit that.
Yeah.
And when a guy is, real big and he's barking over you, you either could, walk away, or you could fire back. And
you obviously didn't listen to Kenny Rogers songs when you grew up.
No, back then I was crazy. I would never back down. I was fearless, and I wanted them to know that I was fearless. Because any type of weakness I would show, I felt would be taken advantage of, and I never wanted that to happen. So I would stand my ground.
That was your defense mechanism.
Yeah, that was it. And especially if I thought that I think I misread him. I'll admit that. I think that he's not just a bully. I think he's deeper than that.
I think you got to stop saying bully.
Yeah. We'll see.
So he might not like that coming on.
So after him, I have a guy.
We don't have to be specific, but I'm more curious about like what types of.
Yeah. So there's a homicide detective that worked for the state police, and he's going to be one of the guys, because he was a part of there was a riot at Camp Hill.
Yeah.
He was a part of that.
What year was that? We were talking about this.
The 90s.
Okay.
Or 80s maybe.
A prison riot.
Prison riot. Yeah. So he was a part of that, and he would see 15 bodies per month, dead bodies from all, and have to be the one to investigate it. So, and I'll tell you, he's hilarious. Like he's got some really funny stories.
Right.
So that, and then so it's a variety of different corrections officers.
That's awesome, man.
Police officers,
do like POs and
probation, and then I want to get a lot. I have a ton of guys that were gang members, falsely convicted. Like there was a police officer that was arrested for setting guys up in Scranton, and I got that guy to come on and tell his story about coming to jail for years that he didn't even do it. It was planted on him.
Right.
So yeah, so there's going to be the two sides of it, and it's going to be really good. I already got a lot of guys to agree to it, so I'm trying to get this, good every week or so.
And then, so where is this going to be found? It's on
Spotify and YouTube for now. Yeah,
yeah, because Apple Podcasts is a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
right?
they're hard
to
help
you hook all those.
Yeah,
up.
I need to work with that. Maybe eventually Apple and Google, but for now, YouTube and Spotify.
And you're going to try to do this once a week? Once a week?
Yeah.
Bi-weekly?
At least bi-weekly. But
at least bi-weekly.
I would hope.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it to where it's once a week.
So what happened was Rob got the first episode out, and then I got COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we will talk about in a future episode.
Yeah.
My COVID experience.
Yeah.
So where are we at, Dan?
About 2.5 hours.
Well, get the fuck out of here.
So about 2 hours.
I feel like, just having talked to you a little bit and talked to you a little bit, off camera, for you with your MMA social media.
Oh, you want to talk about that? Yeah, let's talk about the MMA, casual MMA.
I honestly feel like that needs to be like.
Do you want to come back in a couple weeks and we'll talk about MMA?
Whatever.
Is that okay?
Can we get like some MMA guys on here with you?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
you think so? Rob, let's fucking do that.
We can talk about how
we can Zoom them.
Yeah, Zoom them. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we could Zoom them.
Yeah, we can talk about how Conor McGregor changed the game and now he's significantly overrated.
Can we talk? And can we go? And can we go? And can we?
There's the.
And can we go through?
Hornet's nest.
And can we go through how I know nothing about it?
Yeah,
I'll be the resident idiot.
We gotta get him into it.
That would be hilarious.
We gotta get him into it. You would love it, MM. I'm telling you.
I don't think so.
I'm telling you.
I don't think so.
Do you know what? Never mind.
Don't say it. Rob, I love you.
Yeah.
I am so fucking proud that I got to know you.
Yeah.
I am so fucking grateful that you're in my life, and I am so fucking happy that you are bringing a voice to otherwise untalked about, unheard from
huge,
aspects of human existence.
Yeah.
And I think the world is going to be a better place, or at least a more understanding, nuanced place because of what you're doing. And I look forward to whatever the future is, and especially when we do MMA stuff, and it's literally like I don't know what you guys.
And
are
I
talking
can't
about.
wait to see your death match with Killer Blood.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hopefully, stop saying that. God damn it! It's gonna look. Here's the problem. Here's the global fucking problem. Like we're making assumptions and presumptions. We can't do that anymore. We have to.
I think it's going to be one of the most beautiful things that we have seen in a long time, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, I hope, man. I hope it goes
great.
really well, and I hope. Ultimately, my whole thing is no matter what adversarial thing is if you can shake hands, hug, walk away, that's a great fucking victory, man.
Yeah, that's the goal. I think that we could do that. I think that we can at the end of it shake hands, have an understanding for each other, and then have a good conversation after that. That's going to be the first thing I'm going to talk about is the issue of me putting him in the hole. And then, because this is the thing, after he got out of the hole, he came up to the unit that I worked in every day.
Yeah.
So then we had to deal with each other for a good year or so after that.
I think it's most people would call it ballsy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's admirable. I think it's admirable that you're willing to do that. And I also think what it shows is that, people who disagree are able to communicate.
Right.
And that's the most important thing.
Right.
Absolutely grateful for you to be here. I don't know what Dan's playing right now. What is it?
Oh, it's like a Southern Rocky.
Some nice outro.
Oh, this is good. I like this, Dan. All right, you want to say it?
What a week.
Yes.
That's another $1,000.
Oh, they do not come cheap.